Everyone always says to me when I start talking about my stupid fucking fountain pens.
You have fountain pens, dude.
I do.
We're actually already recording. It's the
great.
21st day of June, 2015, and this is the Radical Agnostic. Thought I would try that.
It's good to start your show with a little bit of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Just to, like before you record, you start by saying, just don't move your face away from the mic. It makes it hard to hear. And then immediately open the show by you moving your face away.
Well, if you scream, it's okay. It's allowed. This is the Ep16th episode, Radical Agnostic. This is a show where we reject ideology and embrace the questioning spirit on as many topics as possible. It doesn't mean you don't come to an opinion or a conclusion. It just means that you don't identify with that opinion. It doesn't become part of your identity to where you feel like if someone challenges it, it's you that's being attacked. So that's what we're against here. But my name is John. We got Mark Beef over here.
Hello.
And we got Bryan Richter, the stowaway guest, everybody.
Hey.
Our guest today. That was great, dude. You're really bringing the fire today. Our guest today is a really cool guy. I just met him, and I like him already. Eddie Dobiecki. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good.
You are a paramedic and an atheist and a generally well-read and a writer and a well-read young man. And we're going to hit a bunch of topics like we always do. We are going to do a current events recap, and then we're going to get into some religious talk. We're going to have Eddie sort of defend the atheist viewpoint and tell us what it means to him. And what else? Beefs. We're going to have anger management with Bryan Richter.
What is it with airplane food today?
You know what really grinds my gears?
Yeah. But first, the Gilligan's Island conspiracy theory. Bryan, if you will.
Yeah, this is cool. I just heard this morning. So the theory is that the island is actually hell.
Okay.
And that the people, all the castaways actually died in the wreck. And so Mr. Howell represents the 7 deadly sins. Howell represents greed. And his lazy-ass wife represents sloth. And then Ginger represents lust. Marianne represents envy because she envies Ginger.
Does she in the show?
Well, this is just a
okay.
Conspiracy
Keep
theory.
going.
I've watched it. I don't know if she does or not.
In reality, does Marianne...
You're going to question this theory?
then the professor is pride because he can't admit that he can't get him off the island and fix the problems.
Yeah.
And
what's Gilligan? Retardation?
Well, wait. Gilligan's the funniest one.
Come around to it.
Yeah.
So then the skipper is both gluttony and wrath because he's fat and he's always
angry,
taking out stuff on Gilligan, and Gilligan is actually Satan because he's always sabotaging somehow their plans to get off the island, and he's always wearing red.
Oh my god!
He's the one keeping him there.
He's always wearing red, really?
He's
That
got that
stupid
red
shirt.
shirt.
He has
on,
one.
man.
The man has one shirt.
Yeah,
No.
fucking
I guess
castaway.
I always watch the show on black and white, so...
Oh, it wasn't in black and white.
Yeah, it was not in black and white.
It was in Technicolor.
Maybe
I'm not saying-
like.
I'm not
owned it.
saying it was in black and white.
Oh,
I'm saying
he
what
had
I
a black and
watched
white
it on
TV.
Oh my
was
god!
a black and white TV.
A black. Yeah, there's.
It was a long
John's
time
like,
ago,
I've
yeah.
never seen a black and white TV.
I have, but there's a sign here in town for like a TV shop, and it's a sign from the 70s, and the big word on it is color.
Yeah.
Color TVs here,
That's
everybody.
That's the one just by our galaxy, right?
Yeah, that must have been like, oh man,
The stores. I don't think the store's there anymore. I can't even remember what's in there. So they still have this sign.
the sign.
Just because it's so cool, but it's advertising nothing.
That's why I moved here. I
color
heard
TV?
about that store. Color TV.
You're like, I've heard tell. You're like, I have traveled far.
It's a land of milk and honey and color televisions. Pictures over the air.
We're on fire today, man.
Oh my god.
Started
Like each of the letters in the word color were different colors.
In case you didn't know what
Yeah,
color
yeah,
was.
yeah.
It's an illustrative example.
When did they add Techne to the color?
Well, Technicolor was an actual thing where they
It's a specific process.
they
yeah,
colored.
well, that's what I mean. When did color evolve to Technicolor?
Well, Technicolor was first because it was black and white, and what they did is they took the frames and they colorized the frames from the movie. Like
that's why the old color ones.
So technically it's color, but not really.
It wasn't filmed in color. The camera wasn't picking up colors. Like Wizard of Oz. That's a beautiful example of Technicolor.
Technicolor, yeah.
And they just hand painted some of that, and then they had some other process too, but I don't know. And then they finally could record in color, so you would get the news like live in color because the actual equipment they were using. Okay, that's the Gilligan's Island thing.
Yeah, that's the weakest start yet. Stumbling out of the gate.
Well, yeah. The other weird thing is that you have 3 bachelors there and 2 hot young women, and none of them ever have sex. And
no, they constantly have sex. They just don't show it. Lucy and Desi may have slept in separate twin beds, but they had a baby. So.
Yeah, but no baby on Gilligan's.
No, that's true.
Yeah, and no relationship.
The professor took some coconuts and made some birth control.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's a lot of other stupid shit about that.
Maybe they did have babies, and you just didn't see them because they got sacrificed to Gilligan.
Oh,
or I mean,
Skipper ate them.
I was gonna say they had to be hungry, man.
Yeah,
baby, the other white meat.
All they have is coconuts.
It tastes like baby.
But my only question about that was, so what about all the guests? Like the people that would occasionally wander onto the island and then get to leave, like the Russian spy.
Well, did you ever read The Inferno?
Just demons turning the spit, man.
No. It's like Dante in the Inferno. They get to see hell.
Oh, okay.
See,
and
take a tour.
To change their way. Yeah, take a tour.
They were supposed to write books, but it never panned out.
Yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Past brought those people, and then
there you go.
Scooped them back out.
We got current events here. Let's just hit these things real quick. Horrible thing in Charleston, South Carolina. This kid. I don't know, man. 21 years old, and he walks in. I can't believe that he sat with them for an hour during their Bible study.
Well, he said, I almost didn't go through with it because they were so nice to me.
Yeah, like you would expect that to be the case where he would change his mind. Like if you're there for an hour, it's like, oh man, this is going to be like a feel good story where this guy is like, man, I'm why kill these people,
right.
But he does it anyway. And he's just...
Well, that just shows the power of belief,
I guess so.
It shows the power of assholes, too.
Well, no, but I mean, he had a set sort of belief, and it precluded his humanity of all these people are really nice,
right.
and I'm not going to do it now because...
the ideology took control. I mean, I read his little thing on his website, and he had just... cobbled together some racist theories about the different races and things, and it was poorly thought out, pretty much, and not.
Wait! A racist diatribe was poorly thought out. The hell you say?
Shocking.
Yeah. I mean, I think I could come up with a pretty convincing racist ideology if you gave me some time and some research. I think I could. I'm going to cut that part out. No.
Yeah, we just lost half our fan base. No. 8 people.
No, I'm not. Honestly, though, I'm not saying that it would be true. I'm just saying you could come up with something better.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
And it's not. It's weird though. He wasn't part of a group or anything. He really was a lone wolf, as far as we know. And this is what you decided to do, man. You're probably going to be in jail forever now if you're not executed.
I think they should just throw him in general population.
No, because there's probably some people in general population who think he's a fucking hero.
No, they already interviewed a prisoner who said who was like part of the Aryan Brotherhood in prison, and he was saying, "My next tattoo is going to be this fucking guy."
Are you serious?
Yeah, his face. What's his name?
No,
Roof.
you shouldn't even.
Yeah.
Don't even,
parents.
Fuck him and his name.
Don't name your kid Dylan. There's a 50% greater chance that they will turn out to be a fucking psycho.
With an extra N. There was 2 N's.
Oh, you put 2 N's in?
Yeah. Dylan.
Was it the extra N?
What are you doing with this
I make it a point to pronounce names the way they're spelled. Like, fuck you. Your name is not Rafe Fiennes. It's Ralph Fiennes. Dylan.
Rafe.
The worst part about that is there actually is a Rafe, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, extra N's, no good.
Is that? Did the English always say Ralph as Rafe?
No,
just
only
him.
Only when you want a pretentious stage name.
Okay.
There is a Rafe, it's spelled like you would expect Rafe to be spelled. Ralph is there. I think there's Ralph in Harry Potter, and that's the Britishest thing since World War II.
Well, they have it's Saint John in Britain. You pronounce that St. John. Do you guys know that?
Well, yeah, but that's not.
I don't.
What? No, that's
I don't.
not. No.
Yeah, St. John.
Not me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also say apples and pears, but that doesn't mean they don't recognize that stairs are a thing.
What does that mean? Apples and
In
pears.
Cockney rhyming slang is
Oh,
so
right.
They use they'll just make up words, and if it rhymes with what you actually meant, then you should just somehow know.
We're in Barney. What are you talking about? We're in Barney, mate. Barney Rubble. Trouble.
Yeah, there you go. That's it, exactly.
That's
an Ocean's reference, right?
yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Barney Rubble. Anyway.
It's like Worcestershire sauce, right? That's how it's pronounced.
Well, Worcester is
Right,
how
and-
Worcester. They call that
They call
Worcester.
Worcester,
That's an
right.
excellent.
But Dorchester, they don't call Duster. So what the fuck is that all about?
Worcester. We were trying to talk about a tragic shooting today, guys.
Oh, sorry.
Now we're talking about sauces.
Which side note, because vegetarianism has come up a few times.
Yeah.
And I think you did mention this, but I'm going to mention it again because none of Worcestershire sauce has anchovies in it.
Yep,
but not always. Even
No,
though I'm
there's
pretty sure
probably vegan. Yeah,
no, but they don't.
No, I mean, there's
You're
probably
saying-
some that they make specifically.
Right? No, there are,
Right.
but but some don't have it, even though it's generally a necessary ingredient, but also don't advertise it because basically
It costs too much.
fuck you. It's basically
Well,
I'm
yeah,
like, why?
Wait, you're
you're
saying
not
that
gonna know.
Worcestershire
You're not gonna know
sauce is
there's no
supposed to have anchovies?
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
what you're saying?
It's basically like fermented anchovy juice is a simpler, simplified way to.
Yeah. I don't eat that sauce. I don't know why. Did you?
I used to. You know what? It's really good in a prairie oyster, which is a hangover cure.
Yeah.
And that I learned from Cowboy Bebop, and so I just did that delicious placebo effect all the time.
Right. We should.
It's actually not a placebo effect. Well, there's actually alcohol in it.
No. Well,
because hair of the dog.
also it's not.
Yeah.
It's also not. Well, okay.
Hair of the dog is a real
Let
thing.
me put on my.
Yeah.
Let me put on my paramedic.
Because
pants.
what I heard is that what a hangover is symptoms of withdrawal.
Well, no. What it is it's so your body starts processing the alcohol.
Yeah.
And eventually what it is processing of the alcohol is all the impurities and I forget, there's two different, once your body starts processing the alcohol, it turns into a different sort of alcohol. It's not
Ethyl.
it's not, yeah,
something.
it's something else.
Okay.
So then when you actually start drinking alcohol again, because your body processes the regular alcohol first, and then processes what that turns into, which is all the impurities in this other form of alcohol. When you drink alcohol again, it stops processing that alcohol and starts processing the regular alcohol again. And processing the impurities and the other alcohol that it turns into is what gives you a hangover.
Okay.
And what makes you feel shitty.
Right, but the problem with that is, of course,
Well, it's eventually gonna,
Yeah,
you're
it's
eventually
right,
gonna have
right.
to process.
and to
that.
put on my paramedic pants. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but I'm gonna let it slide. But the benefit of a prairie oyster too, though, is for second pass metabolism. There's a protein in eggs that actually helps your body more efficiently do second pass metabolism of alcohol. So a prairie oyster, which has a little bit of alcohol to kind of dull it doesn't always, depending on which kind you're doing. The ones I used to drink don't, but for a prairie oyster, if it's an egg and alcohol, which sounds disgusting, it is, then
I'm
it'll
never
pause.
doing that.
Yeah, don't.
And I don't do eggs anymore because of the whole vegetarian thing. But
Well, you mean.
because not because eggs are animals, but because of the way that those.
I was gonna say, because if all you're eating is like egg fetuses, like you're doing eggs wrong.
you're right.
I only eat eggs if there's a tiny chicken in there.
Yeah, if they've
Silly
been
times.
inseminated or
You
whatever.
can probably get them at the farmer's market from somebody local
Yeah.
who's just raising chickens.
Could, yeah. I'll be honest. So I went to my favorite place to eat in this town is Gray's. It's a new place that has these amazing burgers from Neiman Ranch.
No, I want one.
They're so good, and the fries are so good. And
Wait,
they have-
what? I thought you were a vegetarian.
Right. Well, before I was eating that like once a week.
He's a bovinitarian, so
You've
he's
been
he
I
only
thought
eats.
you've been a vegetarian for way longer than that place.
No,
has been in town.
since that podcast, that's when I was.
Oh,
So since I first mentioned it on the show, that's when I first started really being one.
Okay.
I was years ago, but no.
Okay.
I've been eating, yeah. I just have been limiting.
You're blowing my mind.
You just
man.
haven't been listening to the podcast
Yeah.
closely enough because he
haven't.
mentioned
I was transitioning.
as a fan.
Okay.
I identify
You're
as a vegetarian.
You're trans vegan.
I was trans vegan. So
Trans vegan. That's fucking awesome, man.
I actually identify as really muscular and handsome too. So if you guys can go ahead and just refer to me as
Handsome
the most
giant.
handsome and muscular guy you know.
I'm TransArnold.
Yeah. Co-host,
TransArnold.
stowaway guest, handsome giant.
TransArnold.
TransArnold. What was it? Huge bail?
Huge bail. Yeah. Anyway.
Have you been to? Speaking of restaurants, have you been to the Love and Spoonfuls in town?
Yeah, I've been there once and it was good. Yeah.
Ridiculously offensive name.
Why?
I guess
Show
I'm not
hands.
I
Show
guess I'm
hands.
not
Who knows what
offended
a Love and Spoonful is? That's one out of. There you go.
What is it?
It's a reference to semen.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what the
Supposedly, how much you come is a
which for the
teaspoonful.
record,
I am
depends
not-
on the person.
I am
And
not
that's
offended
the band, the
by
Lovin'
semen.
Lovin'
Semen doesn't offend
That's
me.
fair enough, but I guess offensive name was the wrong turn of phrase. But still, you don't normally expect a name. We're going to go to Siemens.
Yeah.
Loving
You don't want
spoonfuls.
that associated with a meal, in other words.
Well, I don't know.
I don't. I mean, if you find it delicious,
There's a cookbook all about cooking with semen.
Okay.
Is it
moving
called?
on.
Anyway,
But
it's not
my-
vegan. Is
my
the point?
point
The
was-
point is, it's not vegan.
I went and got one of those burgers the other day, and then I said, "Look, I'm gonna eat meat once a month at that place." So that's my new rule.
Which that's probably a good idea.
that
to
sounds
keep
like
from
your
getting
new
sick.
exception to the
I
rule.
used to do that when I first went vegetarian. That was what I said. I was going to do that because I never wanted to be. It's that old Dennis Leary bit about how vegetarians. Oh no! Does this have broth in it? You can't fucking eat broth. And I never wanted to be that guy who's like, and then like has to get sick because of that. But there's so many things
Yeah.
that make me sick that I just said, fuck it.
Yeah.
So you said that to your vegan god or whatever?
No, I just made a rule, Mark.
You
for
made
myself.
an exception. You made an exception
When
to
I was
the rule.
sacrificing a tomato on the altar of my vegan god.
I said, I'm
Too poor
going
to
to
be
eat
vegan.
meat once a month.
Yeah. Well,
If
here's
that's cool with you.
This is the thing.
If not,
This is
make me really sick
but-
after I eat this burger.
My whole point was that if I had a craving for meat, then I was like,
You were
well,
pregnant.
if I had a craving for meat, I was like, is it really worth the death of a little animal, like a being, for me to have this flavor that I want tonight? And every time I asked, I was like, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Like, just as a simple logical equation. And then that craving did not go away, and it was getting worse. And I was like, maybe I could just say this is my body telling me that I need a little bit of meat.
It's my body telling me I need to murder. That's
Yeah.
what-
And so, and it's
Not that meat is
it's
murder, I'm
Neiman
just
Ranch.
saying.
So the cows that those burgers are made out of they're not treated
They're
too
cruel.
poorly.
No, they're suicidal. The
What?
cows go to the slaughterhouse.
It's like that cow from the
they like
Hitchhiker's
show
Guide to
up and they're like,
Galaxy.
"Hey man, I'm tired
done.
of this shit. I'm done. Just do it.
Do it.
I want to be
It's
a burger
Logan's
steak."
Run. Their jewel turns black, and they got to go for renewal.
So
So, anyways,
anyway,
South Carolina.
It's
shooting.
your
It's your canine teeth talking to you.
anyway, do you guys have any like novel approaches to this this issue of? I mean, well, here's the thing with Charleston. How sick was it?
Well, we don't
How
have to wonder about why this guy
No.
did it. Like, what made him snap? He was a fucking racist.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, no,
it's-
Yeah, he was a racist. He was also a piece of shit.
Well,
he did it.
He was
because he's a-
also.
I'm
he
going
was
to contend
also-
that that's fucking semantics because most racists are piece of shit in
Well,
my
he-
fucking opinion. So,
But he
no,
was
it's
also,
it's a fair point.
But
Or
he's
all.
also on
yeah, all
these meds that
weren't his.
the dude who did the Connecticut shooting.
Yeah.
You don't need to say his name. It's good.
And the dude who
Crazy Eyes.
I'm not gonna say any of their names. And the dude who did the Batman shooting in Denver or Colorado, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All of them were on these same meds.
Yeah.
And they all,
Antidepressants.
it's some sort of
SSRIs.
It's some
Wow.
sort of.
I don't know what
for
Suboxone is, but
men-
it's
for
Suboxone.
mental issues.
Wait, Suboxone?
Suboxone. That's what he got busted for. Like a few months ago, he got busted for Suboxone.
What is that? Is that
well,
it's not a narcotic, is it?
But my point
I
is,
think it's an
everyone's-
antipsychotic or
no,
something.
Suboxone.
But-
keep talking.
But my point is that everyone's like
He
saying,
got arrested for that, though.
"Oh, this guy's a racist, and that's why he did it," and blah blah blah. And then Fox News is like, "Oh no, he hated Christians, and he did it because he hates Christians." And then other people are, "No, he did it because he's mentally ill." And it's like, you know what? Maybe he did it for all those reasons. Why do you have to argue it down to like, oh no, this is the one specific reason that he did it?
Well, because
and it's because that's what
my
I'm
pet
against,
issue.
and that's my issue, and that's why he did it.
So how sick was it that bunch
Everyone's
of sharks
politicizing it, yeah.
took it on? And I was really disappointed in Obama for the going straight to guns on that.
And then he said, "This happens in no other countries." He bald-faced said, "It happens in no other countries."
Well,
it's like,
but Mark,
really?
there's-
What about Norway a couple years
Yeah,
ago?
but-
That was the worst one. He killed 100-some people.
Well, 77 or something, but
70s.
you know,
But still.
you're
But
right.
still, it's like it happens in. Yes, America. We lead in it. We have it happen.
We're
way
number
more
one.
often.
we know it is.
But
It is a
to
particularly
say-
American
to say
thing, though.
It happens nowhere else is just plain wrong and false. Like,
Well,
But
No,
isn't
hold
it
on,
important?
though, hold
But isn't
on.
it important to acknowledge that this is and can be called an American phenomenon
And-
because it happens so
Well,
much more
and don't-
here,
You
Mark.
can't hold someone.
no, it's
Shouldn't
definitely-
we look at our culture?
We should look at our culture. I'm not saying that we
Hold
don't.
on. Okay. When FDR said the only thing to fear is fear itself, that's a bald-faced lie. There's also spiders. Okay,
That was
When you-
Churchill. Wasn't it?
No, it was that FDR fireside chat. Churchill probably said. Churchill said, "Madam, tomorrow I will be sober and you will still be ugly."
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
but-
My bad. Keep going.
But like, you are faulting the rhetoric of a speech. It's kind of like when he said everybody's
Well,
called
I'm
him.
faulting the rhetoric of his speech that that line wasn't like something to
He didn't
empower
say-
people. Yes, he did. He said this happens
Yeah, no,
in
I
no
know
other
what he said.
countries.
Yeah, but he did not say, "I'm making a literally factual statement that
No,
it has
but what
never
I'm-
happened in any
what
other
I'm saying
country."
is
He was saying
there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
There's also spiders. It's also an untrue
yes,
statement.
but that is a statement that's supposed to be bigger than us. That's supposed to like
Galvanize.
yes, and supposed to be this like a verse
Ra-
from the
a rallying
Bible, or-
cry.
yeah, it's like it's
So
like something
the
that-
difference is that you don't like Obama's point. But
No,
you
that's
do
not
like,
the difference. The difference. Tell me how poetic. Okay, there's nothing to fear but fear itself is sort of poetic.
Yeah.
This happens in no other countries. That's poetic.
Can I just
You think
counter
that
that?
is,
Go ahead,
Can I
Bryan.
just counter
Bryan.
that statement? Not beefs, but it happens in no other countries. We have mass shootings in America. Other places where people are unarmed, they have fucking genocide.
Well, let's talk about developed countries though, because it's apples and oranges otherwise. And then,
That's like the old libertarian joke. Oh, you like libertarianism? Go
It doesn't. I'm not joking. I'm not joking about this issue because I'll tell you what, I'm not fucking giving up my guns. I'm never
No,
doing
no,
it.
well, and just to
We've
be
already
very
had that
clear-
discussion.
Yes, but let's-
I think this is way more of a cultural issue than a gun issue.
Yeah.
He could have locked the doors and burned the fucking church down.
No,
Like
that-
there's other
which
ways this
has
could have
happened.
happened.
that's why
Let's not get
I
into
think it
this.
was very weird of him to politicize it as a gun control issue right there. Like, I don't know what kind of gun the kid used, but
It's a 45.
yeah, and that gun would never have be illegal under any proposed legislation.
A year ago,
7-round
a year
magazines.
ago in South Carolina, same thing happened.
But a
dude
concealed
went to
carrier
a
was
church with a shotgun. Went in the church, wanted to shoot people up. There happened to be a person there that day that had their own gun. Guess what happened?
Yeah.
He stopped it.
Okay, but
No one got shot.
yeah, but guns are as far as homicides versus justifiable homicides. It's way more homicides with guns than.
But nobody got killed in that instance. He stopped the guy, period. Nobody
Right.
got
The
shot.
guy with the gun that wanted to shoot up the church, he didn't even get killed.
Yeah.
I know.
Nobody got killed.
That's it's important, but my point is
it's
just
certainly a
that
discussion that can be had.
when gun owners say that, you know, we have these guns to prevent crimes, more or less. The availability of guns.
I don't have my. I've never said I have my gun to prevent crime. I have my gun to protect myself.
Well,
I've been
anything
robbed at
against
gunpoint. I've been
that's
robbed at
against- that's
gunpoint when I
crime,
was
though.
fucking unarmed. I had two guys try to fucking kidnap my wife that I ran off my 45. I was on the phone with you when that happened.
Yeah.
I'm not going. You're not pulling my teeth. I put a post up the other day. I don't know if you read it.
Yeah, I did.
But like I hate the fact that I feel like I got to carry a gun. I do. I fucking hate it.
Yeah, but
It's
you also
uncomfortable.
love guns as a hobbyist.
You know when I got my first gun, man? After I got robbed at gunpoint. I
Yeah.
wasn't a gun hobbyist until I shot them for a while, and then I kind of grew to love them.
Yeah.
I do like shooting. I think it's fun, and I've had a good time doing it. It's a skill that I developed, and especially once Varble came in the picture and really schooled me on how to shoot. So sport shooting is fun, but I never thought about carrying a gun until I had one pointed in my face when I was minding my own fucking business.
All right. I mean, there's a lot to be said about
and
this.
that's the problem, is that if you take guns away from people, you're going to be taking them away from Bryan. You're not going to be taking them away from the guy
Just
who
remember,
wants to do
because just remember one point, and then Eddie, I want you to tell us your opinion on this, because no Democrat or politician has ever even sponsored or introduced legislation that would take a gun away from anyone, ever. All it is things like universal background checks. The extreme legislation is banning certain magazines and banning certain weapons. And so that's the most extreme. No Democrat has ever said, we're going to come to your house and you're going to put your gun in a bucket.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying any laws that you enact
Are just going to prevent good people.
Are going to affect people who follow the laws.
Right.
Okay? So let's be clear about that.
Not always, though.
People who don't
But Mark,
follow
don't
the
you think a
laws,
lot of criminals get guns at gun shows?
Lots of people get guns for all kinds of reasons. The dude who shot up the school in Connecticut got them from his fucking mother after killing her that were in her safe because,
All right.
whatever.
Eddie, what's your opinion on this?
First of all, I'm not anti-gun. I'm anti having enough money to buy guns because I don't.
Right. Get up in there.
Oh, sorry. But I think it's unfair to not admit that that the shootings problems is a uniquely American. Like that's our fucking chief export right now.
Yeah, because if you deny that, you're not going to get to the reason why. Because you're just going to be putting your
a lot of it has to
in
do
your
with
ears.
mental health issues. Laying it all at the feet of guns is largely nonsense. There's a lot more going on than that.
I already said it happens largely in America, way more than happens in any other country.
So
But
the statement
that doesn't mean
that
it's a completely American thing.
No,
it just means whatever the symptom, whatever
is causing
that causes it, we do it more.
Right.
We have it in our country more.
Right.
Okay,
but we're on the same page.
Those same things are still in other countries.
Yes, but in terms of the rhetoric, if I said, I never go to that store, I may have been to that store.
Right.
I'm just saying, generally speaking, I don't go to that store. You're faulting him for rhetoric, taking it based on a literalist standpoint.
Faulting, yes.
And that's not fair, because it's a speech.
No, it is fair because he's the president. He's not my neighbor who's telling me about how he never goes to Home Depot.
But Mark,
he's the president speaking not as a personal opinion. He's not giving a personal opinion. He's saying this is fact. I am the president of your country, and you are going to believe what I say. But now I know that doesn't happen anymore. Most people do not believe what their elected officials say, and that's part of the problem because these motherfuckers, we don't believe them. We expect them to lie to us. We expect them to have a whole bunch of bullshit coming out of their mouth.
Okay, so if you acknowledge that the point of those statements is rhetorical, and the point saying something like that is meant to bring attention, say, to something. In other words, when he says this is an American problem, the point of it, the literal words aren't that important, as Eddie is pointing out. It's that he's bringing attention to this is a distinctly American thing, and we have to look at it like that to get to the roots.
Well, let's look at this situation then. How would it have prevented this situation? Because do you know where he got his gun? Let me just finish. Do you know where he got his gun?
No.
He got it from a gift from his father.
Okay.
So you're going to legislate that a father can't give his son a firearm as a gift? Because that's like one of the most handed down things in the world. Is it like, should the father know automatically that his son's going to turn out a fucking psycho and go shoot up a church?
Right.
Like he doesn't know that.
No, I don't understand how gun legislation would have prevented this.
Gun legislation won't prevent it.
It's just a 45.
It's a society problem. It's a fucking. It's when have people not been vicious?
Right.
What period in history is that where people have not been vicious? So people are always vicious.
Is kind of perfect for this podcast because
we've talked about it like 100 fucking times.
Every freaking episode. And one of the things that I have noticed is because, unfortunately, I feel like both sides of this are so entrenched that really, like, I'm someone who generally is pretty liberal. On the flip side, I think most of the arguments against guns are nonsense.
Well, you're an Arizona liberal.
Yeah, right. Well, it's fun. No, I'm actually Springfield liberal is what I am.
Okay.
Springfield, Mass, which
Okay,
has
cool.
got Springfield Armory, which has got and neither side does themselves any favors when they jump down. Like if you looked at every speech ever given by a president, you're going to find statements like that. So to be, because it's your personal hobby horse, and you're upset at guns and how people talk about guns, and don't get me wrong, most people speak
I don't know
foolishly.
any guns, so it's not my personal hobby horse.
No. Well, but you're clearly upset about it, and the point is,
I'm.
Well, he's a libertarian.
Beef's upset about any time you're going to make more laws.
Just lying. Just lying. I'm just tired of it.
But there's a difference between rhetoric and lies.
False statements. No,
It's
a
semantics.
lie is a false statement.
It's
Yeah, but my point was in defense of Eddie that Obama is he's drawing our attention through rhetorical speech to the fact that it's an American problem. So do you agree or disagree that it's valuable to look at it as an American problem to get to the heart of why it happens?
Because we're in America and we're Americans. But to say, no, let me finish. But it's not an American problem because that would preclude that it's not a problem anywhere else.
All right.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Okay, but if I said I never go to
Yeah, we understand
right?
that.
I'm not lying, right?
If you go there, then you're lying.
If I've ever been there.
If you've ever been there, yeah.
Okay.
Never's all inclusive, man.
I thought that there were words like literally that were modifiers to prevent that, but silly me and my foolish English literature background.
Almost never
Yeah,
would
if you said,
be
you
that.
know what?
That's
I went
a
there once or
correct
twice, but I don't
statement.
go there anymore.
And it is important.
you know.
And it is important for a politician to seek accuracy in all such statements. I mean, it really is. It's very
and
important.
now, with all that, let me tell you, I am 100% supportive of, and I don't know who would do this, or, I'm not real fond of the government being involved in it, but I'm 100% supportive of some sort of class, some sort of thing that just like driving, you have to do to own a gun. And whether that gun is passed down to you from your father or...
Well,
now, Brian, are you going to...
I think really that kind of thing needs to be done.
Brian, are you going to look at that as a slippery slope where if you pass any legislation on guns, it's only going to eventually end in...
Before you go out hunting in a lot of states, you have to take a hunter's education class. You have to take a driver's education class. I got a lot of education from my dad and from a lot of other people, and I sought it out myself. I've taken defensive and tactical pistol courses because you shouldn't have a fucking tool that you don't know how to use.
What about gun shows? Would you be okay with them saying, no, you need background check to buy these things?
I think I addressed this on an earlier show.
Yeah,
I've bought all my firearms legally. I carry my firearms legally, and if I'm ever in a place where this happens, I will fucking put myself in front of you and any fucking mass shooter.
Do you support any legislation that controls?
Well, one, there is legislation. Two, I'm not fucked up about background checks. I don't want to see people getting. If I'm trying to sell my gun, right? I fucking earned money. I bought this. I paid for it. I want to sell it. I'm already taking a hit, and I'm going to sell it to Beef here. He wants to buy it. If I have to run a background check through you, and you can give me a reasonable fee where you're not going to be able to gouge me, where you're not going to say, yeah,
like
we're
$5.
Yeah, $5,
Yeah.
$10. Sure, that's great. I pass that cost on to Beef, and instead of $800, you pay $805 for my pistol.
Right.
But if they can't gouge us, that's cool. I bought all mine legally anyway, so I don't care. I'm not hiding anything. That's where what he says about the liberal arguments being nonsense. What I get tired of, what upsets me about this, is because I'm pro Second Amendment, there's going to be some fucking liberal asshole calling me a piece of shit and a coward.
But
and
Brian,
all that.
you gotta.
But yeah,
that
but you
happens
know
on
what
both
though,
sides.
dude?
That happens on both
Yeah,
sides.
yeah, it really does,
sure.
dude.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen from me. I'm sick of you're like. I read something the other day that said. One crazy person, a crazy person, no matter how crazy, is never as dangerous as a sane person standing there with a gun. I read that. That's the kind of fucking stupid shit that I'm sick of hearing.
Don't.
I'm not fucking dangerous to you. I'm not your fucking enemy.
I know, dude, but you
As a matter of fact,
can't listen to that.
If you're sitting in a fucking restaurant and I'm sitting there, you're fucking safer because I'm there.
But Brian, the more you listen to that guy, the less you're willing to listen to the reasonable liberal arguments.
You know what I find though? I find
control.
very few fucking reasonable arguments for moderate control.
Well, also...
Because
we
you
can't
always
get into
want
it
to
again.
start limiting shit. You're like, if you want background checks and to close the gun show loophole, great. But stop trying to fucking ban what you call black weapons and
Right.
fucking assault rifles. Every fucking rifle is an assault rifle. Any fucking thing I can take and shoot you with, I've
hold
assault
on.
rifle.
Whoa,
Anything I can
no,
fucking
hold
hit
on.
you with.
No, You're actually committing the liberal mistake. Not every gun is an assault rifle.
Every
gun is
fucking-
an assault weapon.
He said every
assault rifle is a fully automatic gun, which is a big problem.
No,
on the
No,
liberal
it's a
side of it.
semi-automatic.
No, it's semi-automatic, and they classify that as an assault rifle,
Weapon.
a semi-automatic fucking carbine. Yeah,
No, those are two.
no,
the
not
assault-
not in the media. They're not.
All right,
They call
all
them
right.
assault rifles.
And
Fucking
they're
period,
wrong,
dude.
but don't.
Well, that's what he's.
That's what I'm
objecting
contending.
to.
They're wrong. So
Yeah.
what you're not for most of the laws that they're coming out with. They're not for fucking background checks. There's all these riders on them about you can't have this magazine or you can't own this weapon. Bullshit, man. I'm
Well,
fucking.
and usually the reasons they have for banning those weapons are ridiculous ones.
Well, they're not,
It's like
well,
they're very
color-
scientific.
it's
They're
like
very-
they have
they're
two
scary
guns
looking.
that are the exact same gun, but one because it's got a pistol grip.
Right.
It's an assault weapon.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
All right, guys. No,
it's-
we
it's
got
all
we got to
like
put it to
fucking
bed.
stupid.
We got to
Yeah.
put it to bed.
I thought we did put this shit to
let me
bed.
just finish.
It sucks that
So
people got
I
shot.
don't hate Obama. I like Obama. I think if I met him, I'd have a beer with him, whatever.
Right.
So I just want to, I'm not like Bryan saying that people that are arguing with him are going to personally call him out and insult him. I think that's fucking stupid.
Right.
I don't
That's
even
not what
argue
I'm doing
anymore.
about
I won't get in.
Obama
I won't get in a
my,
gun debate
problem
with anyone
his
anymore,
rhetoric.
unless
I don't
it's here.
I have a problem with his rhetoric, not him. I'm not going to call him an asshole for fucking saying that.
I just
or
don't even
anything
argue
else.
it anymore because I don't want to hear it, man.
And then also, all these arguments always happen after emotional things like this.
Yeah.
Nobody has a conversation about this stuff like when nothing's happened.
Well,
So everyone's all heated up anyway.
I feel like I'm the oddball here because I'm not sure about Eddie, but I really honestly do see the very rational points on both sides of this debate. I really do.
They are few and far between, but behind all the nonsense from both sides.
Yeah,
but
both
they
sides.
do exist on both sides. of the
Really
debate.
good point. So I can't say objectively that either side is stupid or anything, and they both make very good points. And I only err on the side of I choose to err on the side if I'm erring on the side of the conservative on the Second Amendment because it's such a big deal to take away a right that I want to be really convinced before I support taking away or limiting a right. So that's why I'm like one tick to the right on this, on the gun control thing. But let's move on and talk about religion here. And
Yes, please.
atheism. Eddie, you sent me a link to this guy, popular atheist broadcaster / entertainer, very smart man, Matt Dillahunty, and I checked out one of his lectures, and this is a little superficial, but it's a good way to pop into this discussion because what he said to open his seminar was, "Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm an enemy of religion." And to me, that already threw me off. I'm like, all right, dude, like this is part of your identity, obviously. And this is the thing with these militant atheists or the new atheists, especially Harris, Hitchens, Dawkins, and Dennett, is that I think what strikes people about these people is how obsessed they are with religion and how much they hate it and want to tear it down and make this point in public over and over and debate these priests and rabbis and stuff. Now, to correct me if I'm wrong, but the motivation for that is that you and these guys really believe that religion is harmful. It's bad. It hurts people. It hurts humanity. It's responsible for bloodshed. And that's why you guys actively seek to tear it down.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't far be from me to speak for any of those folks.
Yeah.
All of whom make considerably more money than I do.
A lot of money being atheists. Yeah. Go ahead.
But although any of them who flipped would make so much more money.
If
If they were like, oh, suddenly I believe in Jesus now, they'd be like, and now I'll take this golden
Certainly.
jet. Anyway,
Are they making money along the lines of Falwell and the Evangelist?
No,
not
Okay.
even.
they're not making
So
mega church money.
So religion's still fleecing people more than the atheists.
Oh yeah,
But-
Yeah.
always
okay.
has.
So I can't speak. I know what they've said, and they've said things along
Well,
those
just for
lines.
you,
and
then.
I agree with that. I do think there's a lot of harms with it. But moreover, I have a tendency to I enjoy debate. I actually am really involved in a debate website. There's a whole website, debate.org.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
And I spend a lot of time arguing over stuff. Sometimes it's stupid crap, sometimes it's not. For me, I have a hard time letting things go. And so part of the reason I spend so much time arguing with religion is because I genuinely feel like the gun control debate's like, well, it's a whole lot of you both have points here.
Right.
With religion, I strongly feel like the arguments are bad.
Right.
And so now, and there's also all these negative things. So you've got the fact that I'd want to argue over it anyway because I think all the points are bad. And then you add on to the fact, and also it's used to justify this and this and this and this. And it's like, well, that's even worse.
Yeah.
That actually makes it somewhat more worthwhile than when I'm arguing over, whether Applejack is best pony or, or any other of the other million different stupid internet arguments I get into all the time.
Right. Which always get personal and ugly.
I try not to do that.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of value in that.
There isn't any.
But it's the internet and everyone's terrible.
Well, let me present my general approach to the religion question and see why you disagree with it. My point is that the atheists are very close to being right in their main thesis. In other words, religion is harmful. It turns people into fanatics very often. It's responsible for horrors beyond counting in the history of Christianity and beyond. But I think they get it just a little bit wrong because they say that religion is the source of all that evil, where I say religion's in that whole category of evil, but it's ideology that's the problem. In other words, you can take any ideology, and you could take feminism, you could take Second Amendment people, and you could take all those religions. Religion just happened to be a great scaffolding for ideology, right? They give you answers, and
that's where I agree with you. I mean, I largely agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at feminism, if you look at the early days of feminism in particular, there was the Scum Manifesto, the Society for Cutting Up Men. Obviously, that was a very tiny.
Yeah.
I think it was actually one person, but still, it was a thing. Somebody used the scaffolding of feminism as an ideology to justify ridiculous
mutilation.
awfulness.
Yeah.
The difference is...
Well, come on, I was just shooting Andy Warhol. That's all right.
There you go. To be fair.
Can't stand Andy.
But...
Soup can bullshit. Go ahead.
10 points for getting that reference. So not a lot of people remember that. But anyway. Okay, so... And that's true. Ideology does do that. But religion, as a class of ideology, specifically encourages people not to question premises. If you're a communist, you can still argue over various parts of communism, and it's all based on reason. It's not based on revelation. It's not based on, well, God told me this, so you're just wrong. You just don't. You'll never convince me because God told me this, or God told the Pope this, or God told L. Ron Hubbard this. It's never. You can't win an argument and reason on that unless. Sometimes you can on certain biblical arguments, but broadly, the problem of religion is that it encourages a true or false dichotomy based on what I would argue are terrible reasons, whereas for other ideologies, there's at least the potential of shifting it. There's at least the potential of saying, well, here's this problem in communism.
Yeah, theoretically, but in practice, isn't it true
Often.
that... Isn't it in practice that non-religious ideologies it's no easier to convince the person using logic? I mean, isn't everybody who's ideological about their thing pretty much immune to, they have a view of authority, whether it's Marx or God, and, so they appeal to that authority, and the communist Marx's work could easily be Das Kapital or whatever, could easily be their holy text, and that to them, that holds such a central place that they just will not question the...
Well, and to say that's not in communism because, like, you could be a red communist or a white communist or, a Marxist or a Leninist or...
Because there's different kinds of Christians, right?
There's different kinds of Christians,
yeah. Certainly.
There's and they argue all the time about biblical... references.
Yeah,
and
interpretations.
Interpretations of whatever.
But that flatly ideologically is my point, is that the difference between religion and many other ideologies is that there is a core of unquestioned. Whereas communism is expressly saying, I'm making
faith.
these arguments.
Well, even,
faith.
and doubting in a lot of these religions is itself a sin,
right?
Or thinking too much is like the devil trying to get you.
Whereas
to
communism, at least ostensibly, is trying to convince you.
Right.
Ayn Rand thinks she's got a great argument.
Yes.
And if you buy into once people buy into an ideology, often then they are stuck in it. Most people have a difficult time saying, "Oh, I will consider the point you just made and factor whether I think it's valid." Most times, it's just like, screw you.
Yeah. But you're saying it's built into
that's
religion.
That's a human nature problem. But I think it's worse in religion specifically because you can't argue with God said this.
Right. That's a good point. I think
that's only if you actually believe in God that you can't argue with that.
Right? Well, right, but that's for them. That's what it. Yeah.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is, there are people that profess to be a believer or whatever, and have doubts themselves. Everyone has a doubt, and then and they're not all opposed to speaking it and saying it and saying, hey, well, what about this and what about that? And there's even people in scientists will be like, they'll band together and go, no, that theory's wrong. That theory's wrong. No, shut up. You're wrong. You're wrong. 500 years later, oh, yeah, the theory was right.
Well, yeah, actually, that happens all the time, and that's one of my beefs with what I call materialism.
Right, so but what I'm saying is, there is faith. There is an amount of faith in everything.
Yeah.
Even in science.
Well, but
even
what you're
in
describing...
atheism, because you have faith that there is no God. You have this. Yes, it is.
Well,
it's a belief.
Let him.
You believe there is no God.
Thank you for telling me what I believe. I appreciate that. I had no idea what I believed.
It's either a belief or a disbelief, whatever.
Okay.
So I don't see the difference.
The atheism, agnosticism, and theism. There actually is a relatively large debate about the use of those terms.
Right.
There are two broad categories of ways people look at it. Some people see it as three different terms: atheism, agnosticism, and theism. Some people, largely in the atheist community, to be honest, have said that they don't like, specifically because they get told what they believe. Most atheists I know very few. I don't know. Bertrand Russell didn't believe affirmatively. I absolutely know there is no God. Not even Dawkins. Dawkins doesn't believe that.
He says
I think Hitchens probably did, but he drank a lot. So,
and he ended up supporting the Iraq War.
Yeah, well, he drank a lot. But the point is. The point is, very few atheists actively say, I know for a fact that there is no God, at the same kind of belief as theists will say, I know for a fact that there is a God.
So this leads to a good question. Why are you not an agnostic?
Because I felt that there was more utility in what I often call it the four square, because I'm pretentious, I call it the four square rubric. That of using the word agnosticism, which came from someone who was expressly rejecting the philosophy of knowledge atheism and knowledge theism and saying, I don't know. That's its origin. I can't remember who the heck it was, but the guy who coined the term.
Well, it's good to know that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Don't normally know that, but anyway, the point is, the guy who coined the term said, I saw too many people who were saying, I know there's a God.
Right.
And I saw too many people who said, I know there isn't a God. And so I said, no. And he even said, this is more of a process for arriving at truth, which is exactly how you're using it. And that's great. But from a terminology standpoint, I mean, gnosis, not knowledge. So there's a movement within the atheist community, largely, and other people are respecting it to some extent, to say that there's Gnostic atheism and agnostic atheism, which corresponds to strong and weak atheism. Okay. There are very few strong atheists. In fact, I don't know that I've met any. I've met a lot of weak atheists.
In other words, people who believe there's nothing, no higher power.
People who say, I know there's no God.
Right.
Nope, there isn't one.
But then to go along with that, I believe there's strong and weak agnostics, and there's strong and weak Christians,
right?
Or any sort of theist.
And that's the value of the four square rubric, is to say, so there'd be an agnostic atheist and a Gnostic atheist, and an agnostic theist and a Gnostic theist. And I think, statistically speaking, you'd probably find a flip flop. Most theists feel they know there's a God. They may not know all the details, but they feel they know there is a God. I would argue, and I don't have a study, but I would argue that most atheists say, I don't know that there isn't, but this thing you have proposed seems to have no evidence, so I'm not going to. So I dismiss it until you got.
So I'm still not sure though why, because there's a social value when you say I believe in God, or I don't believe in God, or I don't know, or I'm an atheist. There's very much social baggage and things that come with that people want for themselves. Right. A lot of people want to be the guy who says, "Yeah, there's Jesus. I love him. He's here," and it has a social currency almost. So why do you go with the atheist, the weak atheism, and is there like social currency to that for you? You want to be one of those guys, like isn't there like this? I'll let you answer and stop talking. But isn't it this picture of the rational? I'm the rational man. It's a very old.
No.
Like, look, I follow the evidence.
I'm pretentious in so many ways, but this happens to, in my opinion, not be one of them. I strive for utility in language for that. And if you just say I'm just agnostic, first that buys into the three-way instead of the four-square, which I prefer. And then if you just say agnostic, it doesn't necessarily say. There are people I've known who said, I don't know anything, I just feel like there's a God. Mm-hmm. And they're just as agnostic as the guy who's like, I don't know what the answer is, but I think those arguments are bad. Right. They're both agnostic. It didn't convey the question. So if you said, what religion are you? Do you believe in God? Saying I'm agnostic doesn't answer that question, whereas theist and atheist does answer that question. So I tended towards atheist. Okay. And I also Russell's teapot. Bertrand Russell, back in the day, he always said, I should call myself an agnostic. I don't know that there isn't a God.
Right.
That said, I don't know that there isn't a teapot orbiting Jupiter that's
Right.
so small we can't possibly see
In other
it.
words, it's such a wild claim that, yes, I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's not true.
Yeah, I'm
because
going to because
someone made this up. I mean, that's one of my strongest arguments for me against actual gods, is that someone made that up. I mean, historically, like,
well, you don't know that it could be that God came down
and revealed the
and
things
revealed it.
in
It's
the-
possible. It's
yeah.
unlikely, but generally speaking, someone is proposing this.
Well, actually, I kind of think that you can prove in a way that these holy books are not divine revelation, just simply through the fact of translation and the different time periods where they've had to be translated, and how it was just, I mean, you can't prove it, but Christians always say, well, the Holy Spirit guided their hand, these people who translated the book, and that's what they say. But I'm like,
Hocus pocus.
yeah,
because the Holy Spirit guided him into the King James version, and it's totally not because he wanted a divorce.
And
But
some
you
languages have
understand.
gendered nouns, right? And others don't. So if you're translating the Bible into Spanish from King James English, you have to choose. Like there's times where you, as the translator, you have to make choices. Like you have to say, well, we don't know what you know. You got to turn this into a Spanish word. Which word should it be? And they just have to pick one. And that now is the Spanish Bible, and that is supposed to be exactly the Word of God. And it's like, but this dude, like Smith, like Bob, yesterday, I saw him make that decision arbitrarily.
But that's the same as any book. Go read Don Quixote.
I know, but
And
no one's
it's like-
claiming that
No.
every word of Don Quixote is
Yes,
a literal
they're,
truth.
They're claiming that this Don Quixote in English is what Cervantes wrote.
Right. Well,
Right?
they say it's a
They're
translation.
saying Cervantes. No, they're saying Cervantes wrote this.
No,
This is
they
what
say
he meant.
translated
Yes,
by
a translation,
Bob.
and this is what he meant.
Yeah.
And you're reading this. So, but you have to take that on faith. That's actually what he meant.
Well,
Not
that
too
it's
many
a good
people are taking
translation.
moral truths out of like
No,
literal
I'm not-
moral
that-
rules
right,
out of.
right. No,
Don
I'm not
Quixote.
arguing that. But I am arguing that you open up Don Quixote and you're reading it and you're not questioning in your mind, did he really say this? I'm going to go learn Spanish.
Have you read
student of-
back?
and
Well,
then
hold
read-
on,
If
hold
you're
on.
a student of literature,
Yeah.
you are questioning
I-
that,
I
because
have
translations
10
is a big deal.
I have 10 different copies of Goethe's Faust, all different translations,
Right.
because there are some translations I prefer more than others.
Right. No,
So
there are people that do that. But I'm saying the common, the common man, like if you go into a bookstore, and usually there's not more than one translation of any book. Like there's one if you can find it at all. And it's like, okay, get this, and then you can find other translations and you get them and you figure out which one you prefer. But what I'm saying is most people don't even think about that. You know what I mean? Like the
I don't
literal
understand your
translation.
analogy though.
All right, look, we gotta keep pressing forward, though.
Fair enough.
Eddie, how do you respond to the classic argument of religious people that say some of the worst atrocities in the world were committed by atheists? So in the lecture you sent me from Dillahunty was saying, it was titled something like "The Superiority of Secular Ethics." In other words, ethics based on atheism are actually better than, because a lot of religious people say if you're an atheist you have no basis for morality, and so they say no, we got a great basis, very logical basis. But so the Stalin and the Mao, these were dictators who were atheist and killed dozens of millions. So.
The big difference there, I would a couple things. First, it's actually, and I could be misremembering, but I believe it's called the superiority of secular morality.
Okay,
I think just because it's his article, and
right?
It's his,
for sure.
It's his speech, and he goes on at length about that. But the big thing is religious folks, and to a large extent, they are largely right to say, well, you can't lay at the feet every atrocity, right? If there's a religious sect, Heaven's Gate, right? Heaven's Gate is not the fault of all of the religions, right?
Right.
But we can kind of look at Heaven's Gate and go, let's just go ahead and disregard that because that's clearly nonsense, right? Similarly, okay, so communism killed a bunch of people. Okay, well, I'm not the biggest fan of communism, so don't lay that at my feet any more than I should lay all the atrocities of religion, of every religion, at the feet of you as a theist.
Okay. So you reject that first step then of the atheist in pointing to the atrocities as evidence that religion is bad. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
I think I do, to the extent that my argument is that I do think that religion is something that expressly rejects questioning and reason. And when you expressly reject reason, you don't end up in a good place. Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. That's what Philip K. Dick said.
Right.
And you figure out what's going on and what is right and wrong by reason. And sometimes you get it wrong, and you should change that. But I feel like religion largely does not have. I actually have a little bit more respect for the religions that have a deity who's still here. Like if you think this guy, I mean, I may not necessarily respect that I believe that, but like at least he can change. At least he can say, "Oh yeah, that was wrong." There's a potential for change and stuff there. When you're just looking at you can't have a discussion with a dead guy. You can't have, and nobody's like, "Well, Jesus, come on down. Let's talk about your opinion on how slaves should obey their masters. Let's talk about whether not one jot or tittle of the law disappears until the world is ended. Let's talk about, you can't do that. All you have is the book, and that's moral because it's in the book." There's no argument there. There's no what we've got wrong. A lot of people say, well, there were, when there were slaves, they were religious abolitionists, and that's great. But the book says that slaves is totally legit. That's what the book says.
Well,
it 100% says it. There are some people who make a very bad argument about indentured servitude that actually only applies to the Jews.
Right,
but,
I read that. Yeah,
but that's what the book says. The book didn't change. Your opinion changed.
Yeah,
and your opinion changed because someone's gave you an argument and you were kind of like, wow, black people are people too.
Well, plus in Leviticus, there's more passages like banning the wearing of hats than homosexuality. Mm-hmm. But no religious people today think hats are wrong. So it's as soon as you pick and choose.
Well, that'd turn the South on its ear, wouldn't it?
As soon as you start picking and choosing which revelations are valid, you throw the whole idea of religious revelation out the window.
Yeah. Would pop right off the Bible belt. The buckle would just pop off. No hats.
No
what?
hats.
Hell, you say
we're going Muslim.
Satan's got you.
Eddie, you disagreed with one of my crazier statements on the show that the question of the existence of aliens is itself the same thing as the question of the existence of God. And my point, I pointed to Asimov's law that said any technology of sufficient advancement will appear to us as magic. And I sort of analogize that to beings as well. Any being of would appear to us as divine. So you disagreed with that, and I'd like to hear why.
Well, the point I was just making is it's something that religious people, and I'm not trying to be mean, but religious people often, there's a concept of prior plausibility. Mm-hmm. If something falls in my room, it could be my dogs. It could be gremlins. I have dogs. I'm immediately going to jump to, it was my dogs.
Right.
With aliens versus God, there's no prior plausibility for God. No, you can't, I can show you my dogs. You want to see my dogs? I got some pictures on my phone, You can't show me God. God is, whereas aliens, there's life on Earth. So although it is still a hurdle to get over to show life on other planets,
well,
to
and
show
the statistical
from the concept of if you're going to present me with something weird and you're going to point to and you're going to say it was God or you're going to say it was aliens, I'm actually going to find aliens more plausible because I know things live.
Okay, but I think we're
people who are alive.
We're missing each other on that, though.
But you're saying that you prior plausibility and you're equating God. Or not God, aliens with your dogs as opposed to God. You have dogs. You know it. You see them. You feed them.
Well,
you don't know that they're aliens.
No. But he's just saying there's more reason to believe that than there is that to attribute something to God.
We know life exists,
but
so that for there to be life on other planets is a less of a leap in plausibility than that there's a supernatural entity who's outside of space and time.
You could keep taking that further and go, we know life exists. So there's a good chance that life exists on other planets. And then there's an even lesser than, but possible chance that there's something that created all that life.
But that's what I'm saying. Is that you're right, lesser than. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Lesser chance.
Is that it is a smaller jump to get to aliens than to God.
But then the next jump is there's possibly even lesser of a chance that there is something that created this life, that there's nothing that created this life.
Well, that's I don't know if you could say there's less or more chance that there's nothing.
You think there's less? You think there's more of a chance
that it was the big
nothing created anything?
Well,
or that something.
It would be
something.
arguable because
the Big Bang is still something.
Right.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Big Bang is still something. It's not nothing.
Right.
And I understand that people when they talk about God and all this. They imagine some bearded old man.
Right.
You know, all this crap.
Well, this is my point.
Big Bang
is that
could even be God. That could be God.
Right.
That could be this.
Well,
But
like
then you start
physicists-
playing with definitions. Now you're just playing with definitions. If
But
the
no,
Big
I'm not playing with definitions.
The Big Bang is non-sentient. God is almost always defined as a sentient being.
because
but there's no-
people write about stuff in the
But
way
there's
that
no
they can
ex-
relate to.
and there's no
think about it.
explanation for the Big Bang. It's like physicists say, "Give us one miracle, and we'll give you the rest."
Is there any explanation for God?
No, I'm saying that's why the Big Bang doesn't disprove God.
No, certainly.
because it could have. No one knows why it happened or how it came about. But
Exactly.
But no,
and so this is my problem with Christians, and I have a problem with Christians and other people of other religions, is they have these absolutely absurd arguments about stuff, like not accepting evolution, not, you know what I mean, like all these things is like you have science, and if you think about it, that stuff doesn't discredit God. Just because evolution happened, even in the Bible it says life was in the ocean first, and then was on land.
But now you're getting into interpretation.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying.
100% are getting into interpretation. There are people who study the Bible who say that I don't agree with them. I agree with you, but I'm just saying that there are people that they say that the Bible is infallible, and my interpretation of what the Bible is saying is this. If I concede that is wrong, then I'm conceding that the Bible is wrong. That is what these people say.
Yes.
But biblical
And-
literalism is a relatively recent. The way it's done in American evangelicalism is kind of recent. So there's a lot of argument for the idea that the Bible, for about 1,500 years or more, the Bible was read, that Genesis was read as probably metaphorical. Like people were so
Because anyone who doesn't has issues. How about that?
Right.
Has some problems to deal with, whether that's personal or just in terms of interpreting facts on the table.
Right.
They
And-
have some
and
issues.
literalism.
And so that goes back to when I was talking about Don Quixote, and my point was, John was saying that you could, prove that these books weren't holy writ, whatever, and then that would somehow maybe disprove God or religion, or I don't know. I'm just saying that those Don Quixote, then if you could prove that, well, that's not really what Cervantes wrote, then somehow that makes that version, that translation, gone, bad. No, throw it in the trash. It's not worth anything.
Generally speaking, I mean, atheism only exists as a response to theism.
No, right.
And so I wait for other people to present their conceptions. And if their conception is this means this and it's literally, I might agree with you that, well, that seems like nonsense. Why does it have to be literal? Why can't you just choose to? But I'm not going to tell them what they believe. If they present to me that the King James Version is Jesus came down and guided the hand of the guys who translated the King James Version, I'm going to say, okay, I accept that that's what you believe. Let's evaluate that claim. I'm not going to say, well, shouldn't you believe this slightly separate one that I might also not believe since I don't really accept any of their claims? I'm going to say, present what you believe, and we will.
But to me, if you gather all the religious claims in the world up into a basket, it's so I throw them all out basically as probably wrong. But to me, what I do know about the universe is nothing. It's so little that I would never then say, since all these religious claims are wrong in my eyes, there's probably nothing out there. In fact, my instinct is just the opposite. My instinct is that there's probably something out there. And what we still haven't really figured out, I don't know if you really disagree with me about the aliens thing, because what I was saying is that it's the same question, the aliens and the God question, because if there are aliens that say they have 1 million more years of peaceful development of their society, they're going to appear, say they can kind of shift between matter and energy, at will. Like to us, that's an angelic being, that's a divine being. And even if we found out their history and that they had evolved that way, it's still beyond our grasp scientifically. So it is magic in that way. So why wouldn't? So my point is that there could be beings out there that are gods to us.
Right, but they wouldn't meet the criteria as defined for God. So what I was more saying is, if you're saying you're right that you could argue that you can't really So I see an angelic being. Is it an alien or is it an angel or God or a God? Right? The more plausible answer is alien, and it's alien every time. Right now, we could get other evidence that could change, but right now, if I see some weird angelic being, my first thought is not going to be, is this a god or is this an alien? I might go, like, how can we figure out what this is? I mean, that's true. We want to explore it more. But if I had to pick, but if I was thinking about it, I would generally tend towards picking. It's more likely to.
But
be
my
an
point
alien.
is that it is a god, and you're saying that doesn't fill the criteria.
No,
for
because
a god.
you're not proposing God. Somebody else did, and they defined it a certain way, and it doesn't meet that definition. It's not an eternal, omniscient.
It doesn't meet their definition, but
it could be,
I can call it God, right?
You could, and now we'll have
It's
that
a new
conversation.
definition of
yeah,
God. Brian, you wanted to say something, didn't you? Or were you just leaning?
I think I was just leaning.
Oh.
I'm just listening. It's hard to. It's hard for me to argue with this guy. So
yeah, you used to.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So if you see this being and you're calling your friend 5 minutes later to tell him what you saw, what you're saying is you're going to be like, I think I saw an alien, not I think I saw an angel.
I would prefer to say,
right.
I don't know what the fuck I just saw.
Right.
But yes,
right.
if I was
I don't know what I
if
thought I
was
just saw, but if I had to guess, I think it was a fucking alien,
Yeah.
and I think I just saw an
I'd
alien.
be like the wild-haired guy from the History Channel. I don't know what it is, but it's probably
is.
But it's probably an alien.
No, and
really
that's just-
though, would you like it if it was like a?
I'm exaggerating somewhat. I wouldn't.
Yeah, because if it was like an ethereal being, like sort of floating through something,
Shedding light.
wouldn't you think it was? Wouldn't you start to think like, ooh, ghosts are probably real? Or after you had discounted the probability that you had a fever, all you atheists, you immediately go to like, my brain's doing something weird. So if I see something,
If I've had a plausible reason to think, I mean, to be honest, the first step is I'm being tricked. It's really, it goes, I'm hallucinating, I've been tricked. But
Yeah.
if we somehow can effectively and quickly rule out terrestrial normal, you're being punked by your brain or someone else, then I would tend towards, if I was like, there's a being there, V'ger could be conceived of as a god from Star Trek 1, but it was an alien. We have more, generally speaking, if I see some sort of amazing, weird, beyond my understanding thing, I'm going to think alien before I think God, because I know life exists. And so just a next step, that's one step, not two steps. We're not going to the supernatural. We're still staying in the natural. I don't know that there's no supernatural. I'm just saying that in terms of plausibility, it's always going to be more plausible.
Isn't that advanced race supernatural? I mean, what if they can levitate things?
Yeah, but you start playing. Well, yeah, but
if nature's relative, if natural is relative to where you come from, then they just have a million more years of evolution. They naturally evolved into this.
Yeah, it all comes down to how you're defining terms and stuff. So,
to me though, my whole point was that these two questions bleed together. There's no real point where you can distinguish a super advanced alien.
Christian would, though.
A Christian would, but I don't have that problem.
Right.
I'm not defining God's.
Well, it's all about reality and perspective too. Because if say a UFO lands in your backyard and it's actually aliens that are driving this thing, and say it's black and white and it's got flashing red and blue lights. First thing you're going to think, probably if you see it, is go, there's a cop car in my backyard. Not aliens, right?
You can investigate further.
Well,
certainly.
if you can, but then if it disappears, you're like telling your friend, hey, man, there was a cop car in my backyard last night. I don't know how it got there and how it got out, but that's,
And I agree with that. And so going with the most plausible answer does not make you right. It could be gremlins. I could be yelling at my dogs for no reason. I could be like, there straight up could be gremlins, and like my dog's like, that son of a bitch. He's always yelling at us because he's green things that come out of the wall. They knock something over, and then I get yelled at just for trying to lick it off the floor.
I'm kind of leaning towards gremlins, man. You've made a good argument.
But generally speaking, what do you believe in? And that's one of the problems I see with religion is that to not everybody everywhere, but generally speaking, they're coming up with this thing that has no basis and then asserting that it's just as plausible. There's a red stain on the wall. It must be Mary's tears.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. Or it could be rust. Between those two, I'm going to tend towards rust. Even if I can't figure out how it happened, I'm still going to be like, it's probably rust. It's probably a cop car.
And that's my problem with atheism, I guess, as it's been defined to me and as I perceive it, is it's the same with like the liberal and the conservative argument. They're both coming at this issue
from an opposition
point, and it's either A or B.
Yeah,
there's no other third perspective.
And my thing is almost definitely C. Right. And
that's why I identify more as an agnostic, even though I would be a weak agnostic, because I feel an agnostic feels you can't, not just I don't know, but you can't know.
Yeah,
no one can know.
Yeah,
and I don't believe that because.
Because
I don't profess to know. Like, I barely know what I don't know.
So
I can't profess
don't know
to know
what can be known.
You don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like,
or what can be known.
Right.
And there's also a concept of igtheism, which is the idea that not only do we not know, which is a conception of agnosticism where you can't know, you can never know the answer to the question, but that, and I would say I'm pretty close to this conception, but I don't quite go there yet, but that the question is unanswerable as posed. If I said, is this a quizzibo? Well,
right.
What the heck? First you have to define quizzibo,
Yes.
and then we have to like show me what you're talking about. Like, so when you just say, do you believe in God? Well, hold on. Like,
Okay.
like you got to be a little, like, generally speaking.
That's a
like,
great point, and I want to transition into something else. Life after death. So what happens when you die? Now, the atheist, they adhere to this idea of annihilation. So usually. So when you die, in other words, consciousness...
It's not necessary, but most do.
Right. Consciousness switches off like a light bulb going off. I wrote an essay about this where I felt like I defended the thesis that I have no idea what happens when you die, obviously, but that annihilation is definitely not true as a logical necessity, because it's like...
Well, wait, hold on. Wait, just to quibble for a moment. Do you mean logical necessity or practical necessity? I mean, like, don't say logical necessity, because that does mean...
No.
No one would... That which is not always that which is logically necessary.
Yeah.
You have...
I mean logically. I mean logically because of the following reason.
Yeah, but nobody... Most people would concede that, and now I'm just being pedantic, but most people would concede that it's possible A or possible B, right?
Right.
If it's actually B, that doesn't change that. That doesn't make A logically impossible. That just means
I
that
know.
B is actual. So
you can correct me.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm not. I might be using that term wrong logically, but I think I'm doing it right.
You know, you're probably using it right, and I'm just not very bright. But go on.
Well, no. This is why. My point is that it can't be annihilation because there's no referent to that word. So in other words, they say nothingness, but you can't actually conceive at all of nothingness. You can't conceive of not being conscious. It's inconceivable. Literally, it's like the eye looking at itself or whatever. So like you said, is there a gleep glop or whatever? And we don't have a definition.
Quizbo.
A quizbo. Nice, Mark. Is there a quizbo? And then Mark and I start arguing about whether or not there's a quizbo over there. And then you walk in and you're like, this is insane. You guys haven't defined what that is, but you're arguing about it. That's kind of like the theological question, first of all, because God doesn't have that definition. Secondly, the nothingness is a quizbo. It's a quizbo because you cannot describe it. So when people try to describe it, they say, well, it's like a deep sleep.
No.
Or they say, or it's like what it was before you were born.
Right. That's the one I would probably go with.
Right. But that's not an actual referent to how something is. In other words, it's not black, right? When you die and nothingness happens, it's not blackness, right? Because black is a perception. It's not alone or emptiness, because those are all
But you're basically
perceptions.
asking, what do you perceive when you don't perceive?
Right. But
when is a door not a door?
No, but the
When
burden of proof is on you guys, because you're the ones proposing nothingness.
Correct.
So if you can't give me any information about what that word means, we can't have a debate as to whether it's true, and thus it's logically impossible for that thing to be the case, because there's no thing. We're not.
Well, okay. The Westboro Baptists could be right. I think they have very bad arguments, and all their arguments are wrong. It is logically... actually, I don't know all their arguments well enough. They may make something that's logically contradictory, and in that case, they couldn't be. But generally speaking, no matter what crazy, kooky, the Gremlins, the Quizbo, you could be right, even if all your arguments are bad.
But not a quizbo.
Obama is
you can't be right about there being a quizbo.
Because the sky is blue is a bad argument, but Obama's still the president. This is a quizbo. What's a quizbo? I don't know. But I could still be right.
No, you can't be right.
It depends on how you determine terms and how you determine whether something would be or would not be a quizbo.
Well,
Only if you know.
You could be right, because the question is, what is a quizbo?
Right.
Not, okay, there's a quizbo here, and you're looking at it, and you can see it.
No. The argument is there a quizbo over there?
No, it's
and
what
you can't. My point is, you can't have that argument until you define
what a quizbo
So
is.
if nobody knows what a quizbo is, it's impossible that a quizbo is over there, logically. Because it's not a referent. It doesn't have a referent in reality. It's just a sound.
True, but there would be two. It depends on whether there somewhere is if someone has like
if
there is
someone
a
knows,
it's a real word.
Right.
We just don't know
but
it.
There is no one who knows what nothingness.
If I made up
or annihilation is.
Okay, if I've just made up a word and when I made it up, like because I did do this, made up a word and gave it no referent even in my own brain. What I have just referred to is cognitively meaningless.
Right.
I have not said a thing that conveys any meaning because Quizbo, it's a
therefore debate
gibberish.
over its existence in the room over there is moot. It is ridiculous.
The cessation of consciousness is different because it's like saying, okay, so an engine goes and then an engine stops. It is when the engine stops, it's in the same state it was in before it started. It has ceased moving.
Right. So
if you're arguing for nothingness, if you're arguing we did not have consciousness before, then we are conscious, then we do not have consciousness again.
But there's no, first of all, evidence that consciousness is a thing that can turn off. There's no evidence that.
So you're describing it like an ethereal machine.
I would argue that the brain is like
I just have to put labels on something so I can understand them. Is that about right?
It's actually a fancy name, and I wish it was as
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's much cooler than what I would have thought of.
Is that about right?
I don't like the term ethereal in this particular context because
just like something
a machine,
can't grab a hold of,
something that can stop or go,
a difference engine.
Yeah, or a light bulb. Like that's what a lot of people. The light bulb is the light is consciousness, and then it goes off, and then you're just a dead brain. You're just dead crap in a head.
Yeah, I don't know if ethereal is the best word, but it's the best one I had.
It's a much cooler word, so I want to run with it. But
I contend that that's not that the machine or the light bulb analogy are not good because we know what it is for a light bulb to be off. We know what a dead light bulb that doesn't work is. We don't know. There's no evidence or like in courts, precedent for consciousness ceasing. We don't know if before you were born there was no consciousness, right? A lot of people think you're back into the collective unconscious and then you zip down to another soul when the baby is conceived.
Okay, but the problem with that is you have two scenarios. Okay, so let's concentrate before you're born. It could be that you don't exist, or that there's a huge cloud that contains everyone's consciousness, or something else, or whatever you're proposing, or a million other ideas. But you have to propose one of them. And anyone you propose,
you're the one who's proposing one. Nothingness, the nothingness one.
And anyone you propose is going to violate the principle of parsimony, which is also known as Occam's razor. I require fewer assumptions than anything you proposed. Anything you can propose as an alternative to nothingness is going to require fewer assumptions because we have no, like you said.
I disagree.
Well, okay, so there's a cloud. Okay, so now you're saying that consciousness can exist outside the physical brain. Now you're saying that there's a cloud.
No, you're right about that. But nothingness.
The most parsimonious explanation is not always true. But that's usually what we go with.
But the most parsimonious explanation is agnosticism.
That's not an explanation.
Well, if you're asking what happens when you die, then
refusal to answer the question does not answer the question.
Right.
So I agree with you that we don't know. I hope it would be super cool, but I generally tend towards assuming the most parsimonious answer.
Yeah, but I disagree that it's actually an answer at all for the reasons I stated before, which is that it has no referent. Nothingness. The word nothingness has no reference. So to argue about whether it could be the thing that happens is to me just like an argument over Quizbo. Is there a Quizbo in this room? If Mark and I argue it, we're crazy because no one's defined the term.
The absence of consciousness. I don't understand how that's not defined.
Because it's not. Isn't the idea that energy does not disappear generally accepted as truth?
Yeah, matter cannot be created or destroyed.
Well, matter is energy, but
right. So how can something that's matter or energy turn into nothingness?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great question.
How can a living thing die? Fundamentally, what we are...
No, it can die because it changes form. It changes, you know what I mean?
Right, and that's my point. So we are made of stardust. So yes, in one sense, you could argue that the stars that birthed us are still alive. But no one would take that seriously because a star is a burning mass of gas. And it's not like if we assume stars can think for the sake of this argument, no one's thinking that we're the thinking of the stars. Similarly, when you die, it is most parsimonious based on the information we have on the table to think that our consciousness ceases. What you're not describing that the energy you're right, we decay and the energy goes into the soil, but the energy is conserved.
When you say
not the formulation of energy that is us.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. But when you say the cessation of consciousness, that to me is just putting words together. You're not referring to anything that can be imagined. So every time you give an analogy,
I can imagine you stopping. You no longer having consciousness,
but you can't imagine you no longer having consciousness. You can't imagine what that's like because there's nothing.
I can't quite imagine what a foursome with 4 different supermodels is going to be like either. But I can do my best.
No, this is very much different than any of that because this is the one thing where we're actually talking about consciousness.
Yeah, because you still have a reference to that. You still know what one girl feels like.
Right.
So you could just multiply that in your head and be like, holy fuck.
Whereas you have no
supermodels.
idea what unconsciousness feels like, or if there's even such a thing.
That I don't know what it feels like doesn't prevent me from conceptualizing it. By that same logic, then you're saying that everybody who thinks of God, no matter how well they've defined it, even if they have said, God is this microphone in front of me, it has no magic powers, and that's how I'm defining this word, that they still can't, because that they can't conceptualize what being a microphone is like. Like just because you can't think through what the experience would be like, does not mean that you can't think through, like, you can't define it. And that's what's important, is defining it and then asking whether something meets that definition or not. I can define the cessation of consciousness. I don't have to be able to think of what that would be like, because you're right. How can I think about not thinking? Like, I mean, that's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that how can a running engine think about not running anymore? Well, it probably can't, because it's running. In order to think about what it would be like not to run, it would have to run to keep doing that. But that doesn't mean the engine can't stop running. You know, if our consciousness is entirely if it is directly analogous to a computer program, which I think is the most reasonable answer based on the information we have, that doesn't make it true, just means the most reasonable way to think of it, and I think it's the most in keeping with the information we have, then it's no different than what happens to a computer program if I shoot the computer. Well, it's not running anymore, that's for darn sure.
Yeah, but there's no question as to what it's like to be a computer program, because there's no consciousness.
Well, the computer never makes a decision based on emotion.
It has no sentience.
Well,
either.
if we assume that, sure, but
so is emotion part of consciousness?
Yes.
Okay.
In my
certainly, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Everything is part of consciousness.
We can't even prove
theories,
free will exists. I mean, that's been an ongoing debate next to solipsism for the last ever. So I'm not saying free will doesn't exist. I tend to believe it does. But my point is that I think the closest reference we have is a computer program, and you can easily, like, it is a much more simplified thing, but you can easily go, okay, you turn off a computer not running the program anymore. Program is not running.
I think all of those analogies fail because they're all based in perception. They're all based in us perceiving that thing stopping working, and then this annihilation, this nothingness idea, is the one thing that isn't perception. It's the one thing being proposed that isn't consciousness, and there's no precedent.
Aren't conscious. I mean, we know what things. I mean, that things aren't conscious.
No. But this is a question of a transition from consciousness to this thing called nothingness, which I say is a quizbo. We have not defined it. But sticking the word cessation of consciousness together doesn't tell me that you've conceptualized quizbo.
So now are we talking about the transition or the two different states? That's two different points. One is if you're talking about the transition from not being able to get to from consciousness to unconsciousness, and that the barriers.
Yeah.
If that's your question, that's a separate question than the two states. Because I think saying that there are things that aren't conscious is an easy thing I can point to. There's a light bulb in this room. It's not conscious.
Yeah, but
we're conscious. The light bulb isn't.
Right.
So I go from us to light bulb. But if you're having a problem with the conceptualization of the line between the two, that's a separate thing, and that's a separate question.
Yeah. So
what I think you're saying, though, is there's no transition really in consciousness if you believe that it continues, because all the transitions you're talking about this is a different makeup. So like a gas can transition to a solid or to this, but it's I don't know if I'm making any sense. But the consciousness, it's not tangible. So I think what he's saying is, why would there be a change at all?
Well, no, I think there is a change
because it's not material.
Well, I think consciousness is it's intimately related to physical things like brain activity.
To the vessel.
I disagree with the materialists that it's a consciousness is merely a byproduct of physical things going on. I think that's reductionist.
But all
and
the
incorrect.
evidence we have indicates that's true.
I don't. So you mentioned Phineas Gage. So this was the worker who
got the thing stuck through his head.
A railroad spike went through his head, and there's some great pictures of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking.
And
there are some great pictures.
It took out a bunch of his brain, and he survived, and his personality was radically changed, correct?
Yeah, dramatically different. He became an entirely different person.
Like a drunk and angry and a bad dude, kind of.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, and I can't wait to say this because I feel like you're wrong on this, is that so I take a radio, right? And it's playing music, and I take a kitchen knife and jam it through the circuit board, and it messes some parts of it up, and the bass is gone, and only one speaker is now working. Is that evidence that the music was being produced by the radio?
The difference is if I had just used an example, because there are also examples of traumatic brain injuries or TBIs, there's just making someone, not to be mean, dumber. You forget things, you can't function as well.
Right.
Just a functionality issue, I'd agree with you. You lose the bass. But if you're listening to Meghan Trainor's I'm All About That Bass, and you lose the bass, you still get to hear her telling you that she's all about that bass. Or you don't hear anything, and then there is no there is no speaker, there's no sound. But you're still getting the same song. The difference with Phineas Gage is you got a new song. You got a new person. Like, it's like every radio is tuned to one dial and it just stays there, but then you jabbed a knife in it, and I guess you could argue you somehow changed how it's tuning in. Now it's tuning in a different person.
Well, yeah, you could. I don't. Yeah, you could damage a radio in such a way that two stations got picked up at the same time, or I don't. I just say the idea that damaging the brain affects the personality and consciousness, which of course is indisputable, and even better, you can open someone's brain and poke the jelly with a stick, and they'll have a memory and stuff, and materialists love to use that as evidence that as all we are is just matter. Because look, I can make you have memories just by poking you. To me, that's a.
But you're not making the person have memories. You're just making the person remember a certain
something
memory.
That did happen already.
Right.
Exactly, and that's my
you're
point.
Not making a new memory. It's not
right.
Like, now I remember when I was a little black girl.
Yeah. Right. So
I was born a poor black.
So, by the way, everybody, this is a radio show, so you can't tell Eddie is a small black girl. But no, so the fact that damaging the vessel changes the output does not prove that the output comes from the vessel.
I agree with that, but what I would argue
and what I think is that the radio is my guess is that the radio is a good analogy for consciousness. In other words, brains pick up.
But what if your radio has a cassette tape in it that only has that All About That Bass song recorded on it?
I'd be okay with
and
that.
And then you jam, and that's what's playing, and you can't play anything else, and then you jam the knife, and like he said, then all of a sudden it
slows down.
There it is, or something.
No, well, but that's not fair. That's not a fair. Okay,
so you have an iPod, and you have like you might listen to a podcast. You have an iPod, like you might listen to one of them newfangled podcasts on,
right.
And then you have a radio.
Okay.
And you have them both. They're sitting in front of you. Mm-hmm. One is receiving music, one is not. How would we determine that? Somebody would have to prove it. We know the music is coming from it, but in the case of, if I put a Faraday cage around a radio, the radio is going to stop making music. That would be a great way for you to prove to me that that's a radio, not an iPod.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Okay. Fundamentally, the burden's going to be on you, because to prove that it's not coming from somewhere else is going to be an impossibility for me. I could never. It will be literally impossible for me.
No, the Faraday cage would prove it.
No.
The Faraday cage would prove, if you put it around the iPad, it would prove that the iPad was not receiving it from somewhere else.
Okay, right. But I can't disprove every possible. My point is, so the burden is to show that something's coming in. You're just saying I'm just going to propose this.
No. That's not true. The burden is also on you to show that the consciousness is coming out of the brain matter. Is a byproduct of brain function. That's a theory.
It is a theory,
and so you guys have to prove that just as much.
But the difference is that yours requires an additional thing that we're going to call it. Again, it violates parsimony. Yours requires an additional assumption. You're assuming my explanation is, here's the brain, music comes from the brain, it's all in the brain. You want to add something to that. Oh, all of that is true, but actually the signal for it to produce that music, the consciousness, is coming from somewhere else. That's an additional thing. My thing is just
a pretty fucking good argument.
Who's his?
Yeah, that one right there.
That the radio analogy is more complicated.
That you're adding something like that. It's. I mean, I get your radio analogy. I like your radio analogy.
They both have two things. They both have the physical thing, and they have the consciousness.
Yeah, but he's saying if consciousness is completely a product. This is what I'm getting. If consciousness is completely a product of the physical thing, then he's not adding anything to say that it turns off. To say that it doesn't turn off, you're actually adding something. That it's not from the physical. You're adding that it's coming from somewhere else. So that's an extra thing. If he's saying it's just coming from the physical, and I don't have to add anything to say that when my brain shuts down, my consciousness shuts down, and you're saying, no, actually, your consciousness doesn't shut down, then you are adding another component to it.
But okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying.
I
like your radio analogy.
No, it might be
I like the idea of the collective consciousness.
It might be a hair more complex.
It's usually the origin of it. I don't know if it's the origin, but
I get his argument. I think it's a good argument. Like you are adding something. So if he's talking about making all his assumptions and judgments based on,
but if you look at the
most
gap,
probable, I mean, I can see where his argument makes sense.
But if you look at the gap between the okay, if you look at the gap between what we know about the physical brain and consciousness, which is a massive gap. And so this idea of the brain producing consciousness, don't be mistaken. There's no scientists out there who know how this works or even close.
No,
so that's a giant information gap. I'd say, to me, that's just as implausible. It really is.
The thing is, when you're coming up with what you think is the most likely scenario, when you're coming up with an explanation that you're not necessarily saying I know this to be a fact, you're just saying I'm running with this answer.
Yeah,
you go with the one that takes you have to make up the fewest number of things.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on this.
It's still magic.
It's very interesting to me, but all I'm saying is that I get what he's saying.
Oh yeah,
like I get the logic behind his argument.
So do you, Brian, think that I think you just said you did that the radio analogy is more complicated than the neurons somehow produce consciousness explanation?
Well, I think the radio analogy really simplifies it to make it easier for a layman to get into the discussion and say, oh, now that
here's an alternative that would explain the Phineas Gage evidence.
It gets them thinking about it.
Right.
But I think you are, in juxtaposition to his argument, we are adding an extra thing in to say that consciousness continues. If his argument is it's all emanating from the physical and then it just shuts down when the physical shuts down, and I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying I understand that.
And you think it's a simpler explanation?
It is a simpler explanation. We are adding something else to say, okay, consciousness continues. It's not a strictly physical thing. Then we're adding something, and I'm actually okay with adding that in.
It might be true.
It might be true. So
but lots of things
we
could
have
be
to
true.
look at it. But his is the simpler explanation of the two.
I respect you for saying that, and I want to think about that. I'd say right now that I am not 100% convinced that explanation is simpler to me. I think they're both magic.
No, have we even defined consciousness?
No, and nobody has.
Not even simpler, but because
perception.
You could have two math problems where one has more components, but it's actually
still
simpler
about
to
the Quizbo.
Beef's
good
winning
point
today, man.
Mark. That's a good point. Yeah, if consciousness hasn't been defined, it's another Quizbo, which would shut down both of us, which would make both of us equally wrong.
Any discussion about the real world always has to be centered in the fact that there's no solution to hard solipsism. So all the evidence we have,
solipsism being the philosophical doctrine that I'm the only consciousness. Everyone else is a dream.
It's the brain in the jar argument.
Yeah, there's one person, and that. Okay, go ahead.
The point being that we don't know a lot of these things, and you're right. The definitions can be very fuzzy, and that's why when we're trying to come up with an answer, or trying to go with the answer that we try to make, and I don't mean to make up you just made stuff up. I'm just saying that when you're coming up with an answer, that answer should require the fewest number of additional things that we don't already know exist. We know brains exist, we know bodies exist, we know brains have some manner to do with consciousness. Then anything else is adding to that, and then you'd have to support that. If you can support me, if you can support an argument.
Well, there's all the past lives regression therapy, and
I would argue that that's all nonsense.
Yeah.
So
there's no evidence of it. If there was any evidence of it, you'd have James Randi would have been writing out $1 million checks.
That's what they always say.
What about that discovery recently that some study they figured out that reality doesn't exist until it's measured?
Yeah, that's.
I don't know if that was recent.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
No, it was. There was a recent article where they got more evidence for that, and they went back and told the double slit experiment, and basically the fundamentals of quantum physics are. A lot of atheists will actually say that spiritual people are misusing this fact, but there's what they found was that light can behave as a particle and as a wave, and which one it behaved as depended on measurement. In other words, as soon as you tried to find out whether it was a particle or a wave, it collapsed into a particle. But if you didn't try to find out, then the evidence would show that it had behaved as a wave during that time. I think. Even the atheists agree that on the very small level, things do behave very oddly like that, and consciousness and perception have an effect on things. And
the quantum level is reality's champagne room. Things get a little crazy.
Yeah, it's got to make you guys unsettled, though.
Not at all. I'm people who are atheists are generally killjoys in terms of the spirituality department, but our thing is I just want to know what's real, and I don't want to just make stuff up and then be like, this is totally true because I thought it up.
Yeah,
and
because I like it. It makes me happy.
There are some people that may be uncomfortable by quantum physics. I'm not in the slightest, because it makes me go, okay, some parts I know about, some parts I don't. Whatever I do, I don't care. I'm not invested in the answer.
Okay, great.
I mean, I'm invested in the process I took there, and so I'm defensive of the answer I have reached, but that doesn't mean I don't actually care that, oh, well, the answer is this, and this, the answer is, well, no, the answer is best based on this process. If that process changes, I'm done. I'm out.
Generally speaking, I'm very impressed by your approach to a lot of these issues. I kind of expected you to be more by the book with these guys like Hitchens.
Yeah, so did I.
But let me ask you this, because I can't get a good answer to this question. The placebo effect. This is a known thing, that belief affects physical outcomes. How do materialists and atheists who believe that, you know, all consciousness is an accidental byproduct of matter, how do they explain
the placebo effect?
The placebo
when
effect.
studied, only affects things in your brain. Like, they gave asthmatics, yes,
No.
yes, I could give you a dozen studies.
Hypnosis can cure warts on your skin and rashes.
No, it can't.
It can. There's a,
Show me an academic study. They did a study. The most recent study I can think of offhand is a study on asthmatics. They gave them a placebo that they convinced them was awesome, and they gave them a real thing. After both, the asthmatics said, "I feel a lot better."
right.
But when they actually did lung function tests, the placebos were not doing it all better. They were doing exactly where they were. They just felt better. Say, I don't know this. I don't know the word thing you're talking about, but depending on how the study was created, I would wager, if I had large sums of money, which I don't, I would wager these sums of money that I don't have on the idea that that there's either a fatal flaw in the study or that they haven't done a good job of it.
Don't do that, man, because I will hit you up later tonight with the 100 peer-reviewed scientific studies where hypnosis has cured skin conditions.
No. We talked about warts. Warts are caused by a virus. Other skin conditions have a known psychiatric component. There's actually a whole
Stress.
Do you ever see The Singing Detective?
No.
Fantastic movie, remade with Robert Downey Jr. Pretty good. Neither here nor there, but the author suffered from a severe form of psoriasis that back in the old days they used to treat it with, like, we're going to make you drink gold and give you injections of magnesium and all this random arbitrary crap. But there are forms of psoriasis that straight up are psychiatric based. And so, not entirely, but like...
But doesn't that alone kind of hit you guys?
No, because if I know...
It's a physical manifestation
from something
of an
in your
emotional state.
Right.
I would never deny that the brain can affect your body, but what I'm saying is that the placebo effect is usually overblown. People think, oh, if I drink this potion that someone tells me will let me lift one of those red buses,
well,
I'll be able to do that.
Don't cartoon it. I mean,
right,
those people are idiots. But there's placebo surgeries, dude. I mean, there's surgeries on meniscus tears where and I don't know how they do this ethically, but they just cut the skin open, put the person out, wake them up, and they didn't do anything, and the person walks out of there, and could certainly be a mental state.
A lot of that is mental state, and so I concede that that's real, and that in as much as it never cures anything that would not have been cured through other psychiatric means.
So you would be impressed. That's a very good point that you're distinguishing between like skin conditions that have emotional and like a virus, like a wart. So you would be impressed by a good study that showed that warts could be cured because that's a virus, and you're saying that your mental state shouldn't.
And I don't know everything about warts. So
what's blocking you from thinking that an emotional state could affect a virus? And that's why I'm backing
off it a little bit, because I'm saying that the difference between psoriasis and warts is that my knowledge of psoriasis is that a lot of different types of that is directly like the more stressed you are, you're going to look, it's going to go all over you. Yeah. Right. Whereas with warts, usually like I got a wart on my thumb. I'm very stressed out. I still have a wart on my thumb. I'm not stressed out. I still have a wart on my thumb. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about this, about how what we know about psychiatric effects on warts. Well, not viruses in general, specifically warts in that case, because that is another skin condition. But I mean, stress does affect your immune system. So, like, I mean, there actually are plausible mechanisms.
Right.
But what I just knew, like, that's why I just differentiate, because I know the psoriasis thing. Well, that's not much different than the meniscus thing, or than
I think that's that's the only way a placebo would help against a virus, is that your immune system would be less suppressed by stress because you felt better about things, so your immune system would function better. And I don't even think, like, from having, like, even Miss Mays, who studies the immune system, was saying, like, we don't even know really how it affects it. We just know that it does. Yeah. And
cortisol and all these different.
There's so many different hormones.
The stress hormones.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer to my question. I like that. I'm going to look it up.
That's the best answer we got yet.
I think I will be able to show you very impressive results for hypnosis on viral and bacterial skin conditions.
And then I'd want to take that, take it and look it up and see what other how it relates to just if you gave someone a spa weekend, how does that go? Does that cure like that?
Yeah.
I'm purposefully simplifying, but my point being that if it is something we already know as a psychological component, well then amazingly. But to my knowledge, every study I've ever seen that is constructed well has largely just basically shown placebo effects can definitely affect your brain and can do all the things that we know that your brain can do.
Right.
But you can't do anything that you would not, that, you can't cure asthma. You can't,
Or you can't, like they always talk about like the mother who lifted the car up to like get the kid out and stuff. Like you're saying that's probably not true, and a woman can't really lift 1,000 pounds.
Well, people can lift. There are documented cases of that sort of thing, but my point was just that you can't. It was off the top of my head.
Yeah, that could be a burst of adrenaline that allows you to.
Well, plus it could be a lot of other factors too. Like there's some heavy shit. Like I've been at the top of a hill and there's a heavy ass rock, but if we give it the right push at the right angle, it just goes.
Yeah.
Right.
But my point was just that something that would be physically impossible, like something that doesn't have a physical, the placebo doesn't do anything physically. So all it does is affect your brain. There is no magic correlation between your brain. Your brain can't I'm going to heal my broken bone.
No, but I don't think
some people
but most of them don't.
I saw What the Bleep Do We Know.
Yeah. But most people that I guess like me or whatever wouldn't say that there's they wouldn't use the word magic. They would just say that belief and intention can modify physical reality, which we already know that. Like if I believe that someone's about to throw a football, or I'll stick my hand up and catch. Like the body, obviously, physical things, obviously.
Yeah, you can affect your own body in some limited ways, and you can't cure a broken bone just by thinking about it. You can't cure a broken bone with a placebo, right?
Right.
No, but to a certain degree, you can diminish your own pain response.
Certainly that, but you could do that with the placebo, or with hypnosis, or with just being a Tibetan monk who's really good at meditating. Those guys can make their heart rates like 2.
Yeah.
So we do know that the brain can affect in insignificant ways, but my point is that placebo never goes beyond what we know the brain can do anyway. Yeah. It's never it's not, there's nothing about it. There's a difference between being able to affect your own body, which I would argue that the evidence suggests that our brains are closely tied to our body as our consciousness, and affecting reality. Affirmations help because they help how you interact with the world around you. But if I sit there every day and go, I'm going to see a blue pigeon today, I'm going to see a blue pigeon today, it's not going to change the likelihood of me seeing a blue pigeon.
Right. I'm not sure if that's... You're essentially right about all that. But
there's one thing about
looking for things, though, actually. There's a whole thing. If you look for quarters...
Yeah.
If you look for
or
quarters...
looking for Sasquatch, or looking for aliens, or
looking for things...
Looking for God, or whatever.
But the quarters thing, if you look for quarters on the floor, if you train yourself to start looking for quarters all the time, you're going to find a lot of quarters. Is that
if you're looking right?
Yeah. No, that's true. But my point was that was just the secret, and there's a whole.
I'm going to see a blue pigeon today.
I'm going to look for $100 bills everywhere.
Yeah, right. Like the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull did a whole lot of the whole kind of secret style, The Secret, and
I read a bunch of his books, and they were good. They were cool, man.
Well, but not only does
I'm going to see a blue pigeon with a quarter in its beak. Hanging out
with a
quiz bow.
Sasquatch.
The problem with that thinking, though, is it encourages victim blaming too. Oh, you have cancer? You just didn't wish hard enough not to have cancer, so it's kind of on you.
Yeah, or
enjoy that chemo.
Well, yeah, or you have depression, and it's like, oh well, you're a.
And actually, if you look at
you're weak or something.
Cancer is a good example of why the placebo effect doesn't do anything that we don't already expect it to. There are a lot of cancer quacks out there. Steve Jobs had cancer that was largely treatable in the early stages, and he thought he could coffee enema his way to health.
Yeah.
He thought that, and he still died. That should have been a great placebo for him, and it wasn't.
Because he wasn't using Starbucks.
I don't know, though. I don't know if... clearly, all the evidence isn't in on what alternative treatments do for cancer.
There's a lot of...
Most of the
evidence isn't in
for every alternative treatment.
Not for every possible one, but my problem is that there's so much quackery out there, and then people go, "Well, it's an alternative treatment, so don't be judgmental." And all I want, you know what? The difference between science-based medicine or mainstream medicine and alternative medicine is that once you've proven it works, it's no longer alternative medicine.
That's right, man.
Right,
it's
but-
corporate.
Right, but that's not a
Corporate
point.
medicine
That's not a
still
point against
sucks.
them. That's not a point
It
against
kind
them.
of is.
No,
Prove-
it isn't because
show me it works. Show me it works.
But
then it
if
won't be
they
alternative
do, then
anymore.
you just take it, and now it's your thing. But they're the ones that came up with the idea,
and that's
proved
great,
it.
and they'll be rich and all. But my point is that while it's still alternative medicine, it's indistinguishable from quackery. And if I can't distinguish your claim from quackery, I'm going to assume you're probably full of crap.
But you guys you take that too far because you end up assuming that what we know now is almost everything,
no.
and anything that says something that contradicts what we know now can't be true. Quack, pseudoscience,
No.
and those allegations come from you guys.
A lot of it has to do with a lack of explanation. When somebody like Brzezinski or Mercola comes forward, I don't know if you know who either one of those two people are.
No.
Not a big fan of either one.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Cola?
Mercola.
Oh.
He's got a whole web ring of sites, and Brzezinski has
Alternative
this
medicine?
Alternative medicine,
Okay.
and
First name
Brzezinski
Coke?
has a cancer treatment where he originally synthesized them from urine, but he's got anti-neoplastons. But the problem is that for most of these people, they're not doing real studies. They say, I've got the cure for cancer. It's green coffee beans. And I go, you're full of crap. And you're right that I just out of hand go, you're full of crap. Because odds are, with those people, they don't go, I have this great study, or I just finished a 20-year prospectus, or here's my evidence.
Well, dude,
they
there's
go, I've got the cure for cancer. It's green
but
coffee
there's
beans.
a lot of dogmatism in science and a lot of money in science, and you cannot fund because a lot of people are materialists and what I would call ideological atheists. You have a lot of trouble funding anything that sounds weird.
Well, that's a separate problem, and I agree with that. But
That's a
but
real
you know what?
thing, and
But you know what? Having trouble funding
studies
is a
are
separate
really
issue
expensive.
from whether you're just willing to make stuff up.
Right.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
So
there's quacks out there, but there's a lot of people who really are very genuine about their.
I actually even think a lot of the quacks are very genuine.
Yeah.
I think, but the problem is that it's not even a money thing, because they're not saying I want to do this study and I don't have enough money and here's where I'm at. They're just saying again, I've got the cure for cancer, and science is keeping it back.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And then it becomes easy and it is a rhetorical problem to be relatively dismissive, to go, you're quack, you're clearly a quack because you don't have any science. I agree with you that it can be hard to get the funding, but the issue is not even that they haven't done the studies, but that their approach is usually, I've got the cure for cancer. Where's your evidence? Oh, I don't have any, but it's the cure for cancer, and you're just keeping it down. You want to hide complementary and alternative medicine.
Yeah, but,
and once you buy
we're
into
just-
that mindset, then you've got kids. There are people right now feeding their autistic kids bleach to cure their autism.
I just keep thinking about, like, when quackery, the only place I ever know of that quackery was easy to get funded and financed was Nazi Germany.
The
They had
Mengele.
Mengele. There were other doctors who did studies on homosexuals. The guy Morell, Hitler's personal doctor. Holy fuck! I just watched a show on the Nat Geo channel last night about how much of a quack this guy was and how intimately involved with Hitler he was. At the Berghof, his mountain house.
Yeah.
This dude's
Eagle's
room
Nest.
was right. No, this was the Berghof.
Okay.
This was even different. This dude's room was right across from his, and the quack treatments that he was using were insane.
Have you heard of the term Godwin? To Godwin and
Godwin's law.
Godwin's law.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're doing it. That's why I don't like bringing that sort of thing up, because I have a lot of problems with the alternative medicine scene, largely because there's a very little emphasis. There's a whole lot of emphasis on you're just trying to keep me down, and not enough emphasis on let me show you why this is real.
Okay.
But I don't. And you're right. There were also a lot of quacks in Nazi Germany. But I don't want to find fault with the quacks because of Nazi Germany. I think that's Godwinning the argument.
I don't even know what you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
just what it
Godwin's
made
laws-
me think of.
But
Eventually, every argument comes down to Hitler. Someone mentions it.
And the corollary to that.
didn't the lack of moral guidelines in Nazi Germany allow for like human vivisection and stuff that came up with some interesting results?
Well,
Like,
sure. We
they
learned about frostbite and
Yeah.
lots of stuff.
because
Yeah.
you can't learn some things without doing horrible things to their
But
patients.
Hitler's problem mostly was he never smoked
Syphilis?
weed.
Yeah.
syphilis.
No, never smoked weed.
He was on
just would've smoked some
methamphetamine.
Weed. I know.
The whole fucking
Meth.
country was, dude. It
Which,
was a
by the way,
precursor to meth. It was called
to
like
drop back-
Preverin or something.
To drop back to the
Something like
guys
that.
you guys were talking about earlier who were all on the same drug, that's Narcan. It's a Narcan.
Oh, these
type
shooters?
drug. It's a drug that helps with opioid
Withdrawal?
Suboxone. Yeah, I knew I had heard
Yeah.
that shit.
Oh,
I
it's
was
like
pretty sure. So I was
what
looking
the
it
fuck
up
was
secretly.
he taking that for?
It also helps with chronic pain. Some of those things can help with chronic pain, and they also help with opiate withdrawal.
Do they get you high?
Not?
No, what
really.
Narcan is supposed to do is, so if you OD on heroin,
Narcan blocks
someone shoots you up with Narcan and you'll come out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. It occupies the same space.
Shuts down
it's
the
an
enzymatic
opioid
action, so you can't.
So why
break
did
it
this
down.
guy illegally obtain this weird drug?
I have no idea. Maybe he may have been doing drugs,
Maybe
other
he
drugs.
was
and he
doing
was-
opiates. And he was
It also
trying
is
to
good
get
for
off.
chronic pain. And that particular formulation has another drug in it. That particular drug has 2 in it. And I don't know. I don't pretend. I mean, I'm not like a pharmacist. I'm not like king of all drugs. I just do know the basics of it. And it is for it. A lot of those are tied closely to chronic pain type stuff. But they're less fun than say your
Right.
Percocet. your
Less
Vicodin.
fun than the opiates.
But they
yeah.
usually also mean that there's more drugs going on there if you're taking something that's got a Narcan.
Yeah, it
derivative.
makes me wonder now.
Does it come
All
back
right,
to
so-
go back to Hitler and syphilis and how he had one ball? That's what we're back to.
We touched on so much awesome stuff here. What else what does this say? The problem with news. One thing that was pissing me off. I get my news from Google News, which aggregates all these different news sources, and like I'm all into Bernie Sanders right now, and if I didn't know that it personalizes the news to what I like, to what it's spied on me looking up on the internet, I would think, wow, Bernie Sanders is like the biggest topic being talked about right now, and because every article on my news feed is Bernie Sanders. I'm like, wow, this guy's gonna win. And then I'm like, oh wait, they just do this for me, and they give me articles that they think I'll be interested in. And it just pisses me off that they do that, because then I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's actually in the news for the rest of the country.
And that's happening to everyone, not just you. And most people don't
Yeah.
give a fuck. They're not even going to think beyond they're getting it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the news.
There are
on
ways
them.
around it. Although I don't know much about Google News in particular, but like Google search results and stuff, I will intermittently. When I
You
make
can
an
clear
argument
your
on-
history and stuff.
No, actually, because
Oh.
Google's smart enough to then put a new cookie on and go, wait, isn't this the same guy? This is
Yeah.
the same guy.
Oh, yeah.
But you can, I think incognito mode, they made it a point to let incognito mode do that. And then
Yeah.
also I have a VPN. And so then when I log into stuff, it thinks I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
It doesn't know who I am,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Supposedly they've got technology that they're working on to where then, like you said, John, with your internet or on your phone or wherever you're reading that stuff, like it's going to tailor newspaper articles and ads and everything else to you. So like if you're walking down the street and there's like a billboard, it's going to look differently to you
Yeah.
than it is to me.
I mean, you'll need some kind of you'll have to be wearing some technology.
No, I think, well, maybe
the billboard
Google
one.
Glass.
Yeah, you
It's
can't
like
make
Minority Report.
Yeah.
That sort of reminds me.
It'll say your name. You'll be walking by. It'll be like, Mark, have you tried this shampoo yet or whatever?
Right.
And
And I'd be like, no, sign. I have not.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
but
advice.
fuck you, sign. I hate you. It's gonna be weird.
Big ass fries.
Carl's Jr. recognizes you don't have any more money. We are now taking your children.
Yeah. Self-driving cars are also coming. I've been researching.
I'm looking
this.
forward to it.
That'll
me
fucking
too.
help a
So
lot
what-
of people.
Yeah, it'll stop tens of thousands of deaths.
Didn't one of them run over a bunch of people?
No,
trying to park or something?
these Google cars have been driving for years, and
I think I
Is
mean.
that the mapping ones? The ones that
yeah, they're map street view.
Well, those weren't self-driving.
some of them are.
Some of them
the
are
street
now.
view.
Yeah, but you shouldn't conflate the two. The street view cars have been around for like a decade now.
Yeah, well,
but
they
they
weren't
haven't been self-driving for a
Well,
decade.
self-driving's been around
For a
for
couple
6
years.
years.
6 years?
6 years, yeah, and they've had
So those Google cars don't have anybody in them?
Well, most of them do.
Not the self-driving ones.
Not the ones that don't.
Yeah, so there are cars driving around with no one in them, and there's been a bunch of accidents involving them, but none of them were due to the robot's error. It was all due to some idiot swerved into the Google car.
But it still obeys like traffic laws, right?
Oh yeah,
So if it's going on the street and turns a red light,
Yeah,
it
it
stops.
stops, yeah.
It stops.
yeah. They
Then could I walk up to it, this car with nobody in it, and open the door and get in
no,
it?
it's locked.
Well,
You could,
break a
you
window.
could ride the ceiling.
Yeah, you
could
could
ride
do
the
that.
roof. You could Teen Wolf it.
It probably has safety features where it'll shut down if someone smashes a window because they don't want it to get stolen. So
One that's
I'm
constantly
guessing.
taking video.
Yeah, that too.
right.
And it's
Live
GPS.
video.
Yeah, live
Yeah.
video with GPS. So
Yeah, they'll probably send Google commandos after you. If you fucking,
Yeah.
they'll zap you from a satellite. They're like, nope, fry
Yeah,
beef,
but
he's
think
out
of
of line.
safe search off,
But think
motherfucker.
of the publicity.
Fry beef, he's out of line.
motherfucker.
Think of the publicity, though. How many people would tune into this podcast after that?
Oh, I know. This is Beef reporting live from a Google.
Well, that's another thing because of this Periscope technology where people are live broadcasting things on their cell phones. We talked about it last week, didn't we? And I was thinking one of my cockamamie ideas was like turning that into a new news network somehow, and you would like have independent contractors who were using Periscope all over the world, and anytime a news event happened, you would pay your guys to be there on the street with those phones recording live video, and so this would be like a new internet-based news station that gives it to you straight. In other words, we're giving you live video from the place where it's happening all the time. We're not telling you bullshit and stuff. So that was my idea for like a new like
Raw Dog News Network.
Raw Dog.
No condom, no filter.
I don't think we have time for beefs or anger management.
That's okay.
That was my fucking beef this week.
What?
That you're not giving me time to do this shit.
You know what really grinds my gears, America?
Did you make up with Katie yet?
I don't know. I
Mark,
did last
take the initiative.
What am I supposed to do?
Be
I
the
said I
bigger
love
man.
her, and that I was sorry that I fucking.
She doesn't listen to this fucking show.
Well, what am I supposed to do? She's still friends. She's still friends with me on Facebook.
Okay, that's a good sign. Brian, you want to give us a quick anger management? We have like a couple minutes here.
Oh, sure. I see how it is.
Well, wait. What's your beef then?
No, I told you what my beef was. You're not giving me any fucking time.
Yeah.
I've been on here longer than fucking Brian.
It's true.
He's got a couple shows on me, dude.
Yeah.
He has. I think Beef should get
I'd
priority.
rather hear Brian's thing.
You don't have one. That's why.
No, actually, okay. It's real quick. Why do people on the internet write IMO or IMHO?
In my opinion.
It's in my opinion, or in my humble opinion, or in
Because
my
they don't want to be
opinion.
accused of lying because they used a turn of phrase in their rhetoric.
No, but why? Like whatever you're saying
is obviously
your opinion.
The
Whatever
reason
you're typing is obviously
it's a
unless you're quoting someone.
No, because Mark,
I'm saying this person said this.
It's a useful device because it qualifies the statement and it says, "Look, I don't know if this is true, and I could be wrong, but here's
this is
my
what I think."
Yes."
But like, if I'm listening to this podcast or any podcast or reading something that you're commenting on, or Brian or me, or I know all of it is opinion.
Yes.
None of it is fact.
Well, some of it is. Some things are facts.
Yeah, I give you some facts.
I can refer to facts.
Well, you can, but then it's through your perception. You're perceiving this fact as this way. Maybe you have it wrong.
Okay,
Maybe you're not, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know.
real-
Like we
I'm-
can agree on certain facts.
You're
Like,
making
I have 2 testicles. That's a fucking fact.
Another
I can
fact
put
is
them on the
that
table.
Mark's
and
wrong
show you.
about this. So, that's it. Problem solved.
Well, my main point is just
Beef's
like
is over.
if you're writing something, I know that it's your opinion.
Okay.
So you don't have to point that out. You don't have to go, hey guys.
What about I am not a lawyer? I always think it's funny because it's got anal in there.
I'm not a lawyer.
IANAL. IANAL.
I'm not a lawyer, but
I barely know any of these fucking things. So when
I look
get
them up every
exposed to
time.
them,
I'm like, what is
I
this?
don't.
LOL
I'm not a
0
lawyer.
L.
yeah, I didn't know
So is
what
that when someone's giving legal advice
FTW
on the
meant.
internet? They write that?
For the win. I thought it was
I'm-
fuck
like,
the
they'll
world
be
too.
like, I'm not a
All
lawyer.
right, we're all talking at the same time, literally.
FT for the win.
The
So
next
whatever.
time, come up with something that you're actually have justified to be mad about.
That's going to be.
I'm justifiably mad at that. Ow.
That's going to be next week. So I'm going to be like, yeah, my beef is that fucking John's making me fucking get mad about something, and he wants something that he doesn't accept just what I say.
Yeah.
It has to be something that he
likes.
He likes.
In his opinion.
Yeah.
In his opinion. All right.
All right.
Sorry for wasting your time, America.
It was great. It
I
was
think
funny.
it was
man.
lovely. I had a good time.
We
with
just Brian, anger management.
that. I don't know what I got today.
Just do a 30-second one where you just punch someone or something.
I'm drawing. The last one was so good with the.
Wait, what about that time when you were walking and the guy on the bicycle?
Just fucking punched me out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
So how old were you? What happened?
I'm like, yeah, it's fucked up, man. I'm like, I don't know. It was before the.
Just throw out an age.
I think I'm like about
3.
It
37.
It doesn't matter, man.
I'm
Just say
like
a
almost
number.
an adult, like 20,
Okay.
around 20, and I'm walking downtown.
Where, here?
Harrisburg,
Okay.
Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
No, this story already isn't going to go well.
Yeah,
No,
Pennsylvania.
I'm walking downtown, and there's a guy riding towards me on a bike, and I'm like, hey man, what's up? And this motherfucker never says a word to me. He just fucking socks me as he's riding by. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like when you get hit by a dude riding a bike going the opposite direction, and like I didn't give him the finger. I'm like, hey man, what's up? Blast me in the face hard as fuck, dude.
God.
The whole side of my head swelled up. Like I was so fucking mad.
Did you go down?
Oh yeah, dude. And not only did I go down, but I fucking when I went down, I fell backwards in the most awkward, fucked up way into a parking meter.
Oh.
So like I got that in the back of the head and the neck, and I was all like these ladies,
so
like these old ladies came out of the store and they're like, "We saw that," and I'm like, I didn't like. But I was down there for like a week. I went back every day. I was looking for that motherfucker. I never saw him again, but
maybe
I was
he
so
thought
mad.
like when you said that.
No, it was clear, dude. I actually think it was
a hate crime.
Yeah, it was
He
a
was
black
a
dude.
man of African American descent.
Yeah, I think he just knocked me out because I was a white dude. This is the knockout game going back to when I was fucking 20.
Oh,
like
man.
it's nothing new, kids. You didn't invent it.
Being an asshole. That's the game.
Yeah.
That was it, guys. Eddie, thank you so much. You're
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for bringing up that painful memory.
Let's end on a high note.
Yeah.
About that time he got punched in the face.
Well, usually it ends with me punching somebody, so this is like a twist on the anger management.
Guys, just tell me what you like about the show and how I can make it better. And please listen to New Music Sound Circus and Concerto for the Deaf. The latter is a rock show with unsigned and unknown bands, and the former is more of like a alternative or like indie kind of music. So whichever mood you're in, those are both really good shows on the Radio Dogs Network, which is this network of rogue artists or content creators that I am also a part of, and this show is hosted on their thing. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. That's the Radical Agnostic, episode 16. We will be back next week. Goodbye.